Welcome back. We finished The Caves of Steel. Officially, since we read it again, it is my favorite Asimov book that I've read. There's still a bunch
this book.
I haven't gotten to.
It was great. I'm dying to jump into the next one.
Yeah.
But I finished before you did.
Yeah, you did. And then she woke me up in the middle of the night and tried to talk to me about it.
I literally shoved him awake while the baby's sleeping like right next to us. And I'm like...
Perhaps my perfect memory isn't so perfect, as we touched on in the last episodes. What's the guys Cuckoochus? The guys in Final Fantasy?
Oh yeah.
It was, how late was it, you think, that you woke me up?
It had to have been like
2 or 3, I'm gonna guess. No,
it was
really?
like 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Yeah, that's how you know we're parents. My time shift 2 or 3.
We went to sleep like at 11:30, 12, and I had like 5% left in the book.
Yeah, it wasn't long, but I was already out. Okay.
It couldn't have been like an hour of reading.
Point is, I was like, yeah. This is spoilers, by the way. If you're here and you don't know the spoilers, and like you said, everybody knows this by now, but just in case.
This is like our third talk on this.
Yeah, in this.
Point
is, she wakes me up at what I thought was 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'm like, it's the Commissioner rode on the robot across country to go commit the murder.
You literally pictured it, and I can't, like in Final Fantasy, those little chickens that you ride. Yeah. But the funniest part for me when he told me this was like, this is such a primitive robot. I don't know if he can even run. So I was just picturing this pudgy
like slower than
guy,
he could just walk on his own.
Like just riding on this robot's back.
I always pictured it fast. I don't know why. I am picturing iRobot dudes, but you're right. I mean, I know both that they're primitive robots, and yet for some reason my brain remembered
he literally just walks around the office.
Mm-hmm. Terminator slow style. Anyways, we'll get to the ending. You want to jump into the chapter? We left off at chapter 12.
Let's try to go in chronological order.
We don't
if
have
we
to,
jump
but
around,
for sure. Yeah. We're gonna be jumping all around and all that.
Basically, where we left off last time was
they were sleeping at that police, owned allocated apartment thing, and the whole thing with the sun showing up.
His son shows up, and he calls his wife, and
now
then he has the dream.
Yeah,
where he
that's
pushes
true.
his wife into the fissure.
Yeah, the Fisher Price. He pushes her right into the Fisher Price. The fission into the nuclear reactor.
Sense that Fisher Price would take her out.
It's okay, baby brain. So he had that nightmare with the wife, killing his wife, essentially pushing her into the fission reactor. Now they're at the police HQ, and Daneel is going through the records because he has, robo-photographic memory, and he can pull up all these people's...
He's basically like teaming up with the computer, and they're looking for the faces that he's seen following them. Yeah. That's the plan.
And the first person they see is going to end up being my favorite character, one of my favorite characters, obviously besides Baley.
Cloussard.
But yeah, Francois. It's just Francis Cloussard. Age 33 at the time of arrest.
I'm the only one that reads it like that. But
yeah. Age 33 at time of arrest 2 years before. Cause of arrest, inciting to riot. Employee at New York Yeast. Home address, great t-shirt idea. Home address, so-and-so. Parentage, so-and-so. Hair, eyes, distinguishing marks. Education history, employment history. Psychoanalytic profile. Blah, blah, blah.
Physical profile, data here, data there.
Yeah. They find out, well, I guess here, they also pull in the doctor. The roboticist. Well, not yet.
So, first, Daneel's like, I have found 2 of the people that were following us. Mm-hmm. And he's like, that's great. Can we go arrest them after I do something?
Yeah. Anthony Gerigel.
By the
Dr.
way,
Gerigel.
One small detail that's brought up here is that Baley tells Daneel that on Earth he doesn't count as a witness, which...
Oh yeah, robots don't count.
The only thing I was like, Asimov, the only thing I find silly about this... Mm-hmm. So I get that they can't be a witness, but because they are seen as equipment, couldn't their report literally be like a camera?
Yeah, like a camera. Yeah, exactly.
Like, wouldn't it just be a report or... Like, why would it not count as evidence?
We're already there. We're with the AI. I could talk to the computer, pull up the file.
He's not going to lie.
Yeah.
Don't treat him as a witness. Treat it as, evidence.
Yeah, just a piece of a video recorder device.
A recorded evidence.
Yeah, that talks to you.
So I was like, that is the silliest
It is kind of funny. My only way I'd say is like it's just proof of larger robotic mindset.
Yeah.
That it feels creepy, it feels weird. They're not going to allow them to be
legally, though,
everywhere.
Like you're going to
kind of like the resistance you're seeing with the glasses, the little recording glasses and shit. Like people feel a little weird that you can just be recording them anytime, and so there's got to be so much pushback on the robots, just in everything from jobs to them being creepy to them now they can be used against you in the court of law.
But what benefit is it? Like the government's literally trying to have the robots. Oh, whatever. This is like a totally side. This is a side quest.
It's fun.
Because in my mind, they're trying to have the robots take over jobs and stuff. So wouldn't it make sense that at least in certain situations, like I get like a robot shouldn't be used as a witness in everything.
Yeah, I guess in murder and capital crimes.
He's
maybe.
literally with Baley being used as a police, as police equipment in this case.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Literally in the case that they're investigating. So wouldn't his input of something that's happened actually be evidence?
Yeah. He's also probably playing with, like we said a bunch of times, Asimov knows his history, the accounts of women not counting as much, or, slaves or something.
I mean, I also think, you're right to some extent, where like maybe it would be like there is such an anti-robot push on the planet that you're right. Maybe it would be so scandalous. Like, how dare
even if it's illogical,
like, because the robots,
it's just
I
an
guess,
impulse.
When you paint it like that, the robots are also everywhere. So like, great, they're always watching us.
Yeah, exactly. To not have people think that, even though it would be convenient here, it's almost like you should put a recording device in your house if you really want to stop crime, and just put cameras everywhere. And yet we think that's weird.
But we already have cameras everywhere.
Yeah, but there's
and like you
not allowed to use that.
I mean, all right. So, I guess Asimov couldn't see this far ahead. Mm-hmm. But
squeaky chair, if you can hear it. I don't know. I doubt it got picked up.
My chair makes like so much noise, but whatever. Asimov would have not been able to predict that cops.
You make the noise.
I stopped. I took my elbows off.
Yeah.
Asimov wouldn't have been able to predict that cops would have body cams on them, because like technically.
Yeah. What's
like,
the difference?
Daneel
He's a cop. He's been deputized
as a body cam.
Yeah. Yeah. No. All right. I agree with you in the specifics here. It is a little silly because he's literally been deputized as a robot.
Yeah.
He got special programming to be that.
So like. So nothing he sees will ever be...
In this case, in my only little
save. Like, he can
save.
watch an accident and he can't count as, like, a literal camera. Mm-hmm. Like, that seems ridiculous. But,
but you're right.
I get
Moving
it.
on.
For the sake of the story,
Yeah.
it was important that he not be allowed as a witness because it's an obstacle in multiple ways for a bunch of stuff. So I get it.
You think it's a tangent, but I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point. Both a writer critique a little bit, but also it does make you think more about the world.
Wait, in a funny way...
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I almost need to like jump to this to part of the spoiler. So
no, again, that's the whole point.
Sammy R is gonna die, right?
Why?
Why does it matter if he can't be a witness anyway?
You're not supposed to think of that. Yeah, you weren't supposed to think of that. Strike that from the record, Your Honor. She's using robotic witnesses.
I'm just
robotic
saying,
logic to
because
aid
they
her.
were worried that Sammy R was gonna dispel this big secret to someone.
All right.
But why does it matter?
Another save
if he couldn't
from my boy.
Be a witness.
Asimov here, because it's gonna make the organic folks look into it. It's like if a little kid says some shit, you go, all right, it's a little kid, but maybe I'm gonna look into that and see if there's any
like
truth
I guess you
to
would
it.
find out.
And it's just that he's nervous. You might be right that it doesn't make logical sense, but he's fucking schwitzing over there. He's schwitzing. The commissioner is just nervous and scared, so of course he's gonna kill him.
I am redeemed. I was kind of right. And then I was thrown off, and then I was kind of right again.
Oh, yeah, because she...
Like, I knew my hunch was not going away.
If you guys saw the other ones, I remembered, it, I don't know, early-ish into reading the first...
You had to sit here and pretend you didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, because I was glad that you went with... I was actually not remember. Before I remembered what it was, I was like, is it the wife? Because I was kind of super suspicious of the wife.
I was so positive from the beginning that it was the commissioner.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I was like... And I want to say there's something in my little brain connected dots that I can't quite put into words right now.
But he was doing it on purpose, but like you said, then he tries to throw you off the scent.
He does.
With the whole broken glasses, he's a medievalist.
Well, not just the fact that literally we find out that Daneel cyber cerebro analyzed.
Oh yeah, cerebro analyzed him.
I went through like 3 different C words.
Yeah.
Cerebro analyzed.
At least it wasn't the worst one. Go ahead.
Commissioner was like, he's not able to kill someone. Like, it's not in him. He's not a...
He couldn't kill... Yeah, and it's implied in there that he can't kill a person, but the way he wrote it was good. You didn't think about... He didn't make it specific like that.
I would like to get back to that in a minute.
What?
Because... Okay. So the whole point... that we're going to go through all this stuff.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll go chapter by chapter points because there's plenty of cool detail.
Basically, we're going to end up where it turns out that the commissioner used Sammy R.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
Sammy. He didn't hop on him like a cuckoo.
He didn't ride him like a cuckoo. Or a chupa-choo, whatever it's called. But he did have him take a blaster to him so that he can blast someone. He intended for it to be to be the robot.
Yeah.
But the robot's literally made in the doctor's image, and for whatever reason, he broke his glasses. Which that was another thing. I was like, it almost would have been better if he broke his glasses in commute. It would have been better if he rode the robot and somehow
that's why I think my brain
slapped his glass.
Yeah.
But whatever. He, out of nervousness, in quotation marks, he drops his glasses and breaks them.
Yeah, because he has this tick where he kind of cleans them. He kind of takes them off his face and cleans them.
Oh my god, my poor brain. So why were the glasses at the scene of the crime if he supposedly broke them before the door was opened?
Because it wasn't the shards were in the door. I don't know if you forgot that part. There was little shards of his glasses, and he says you can get those scanned basically to tell that they're the exact shards from his glasses.
In my mind, they're in the apartment.
They're in the door frame is how I remembered.
So he dropped his glasses as they opened the door?
I got it. I mean, we can look it up here. I'm sure it's not that obviously wrong. I thought it was like in the door. I don't know, just in the front of the doorway.
We'll get there. But he drops his glasses and he's nearsighted, so he can't see. The robot that looks like exactly like the doctor, because he was made in his image, opens the door. I mean, it's supposed to open the door because he lives with the doctor, but the doctor happens to be bullet journaling fanatic or something. That's not true.
Morning riser.
He's just an early riser. Like, I don't know, I picture him like my grandpa. My grandpa used to wake up at 6 every day and like listen to the radio and hang out, with just the house being just totally quiet. And no one else awake. He enjoyed that. So I imagine this man being like that. So he opens the door, not expecting the commissioner at that hour because he got there early, and then he shoots him and leaves thinking that he shot the robot. Then he comes back and it turns out he shot the doctor because, you know, he was supposed to meet the doctor at whatever hour. So he returns and he shot the wrong person. And so that's why he's so like distraught, because he mistakenly shot the wrong person.
Yeah. I found the quote.
And why his cerebro analysis supposedly was that he couldn't do this because he did it by accident. It was not on purpose.
Yeah, and
the
play with murder versus property destruction. Is that the way
that works? Wouldn't your brain change if you accidentally killed someone?
Yeah.
Like, I get Asimov
think he'd be a different
this,
man.
Like,
yeah. Having murdered someone and be guilty. But once you murder
someone, doesn't your brain like, okay, guess we could do that?
Yeah, and you'd be like, man, I'm not picking up murderer vibes or like angry super vibes, but this guy's nervous as shit.
Yeah,
I've never seen somebody this nervous before.
Yeah,
this guy's lying about and hiding
literally,
something.
We have Bailey being like, this is not normal the way this guy's breaking down.
Because all sci-fi has some measure of hand-wavy tech. The most obvious is faster than light travel. You need that to have fun shit, and we need to not think about it. And so for here, like, you're right. If it can scan your brain, you just get the hand-wavy. Yeah, it just scans their brain and can tell their emotional state so much that it can tell you what they would do.
Yeah, so
but it can't tell you're nervous as hell.
Levels of anxiety.
Something that our own current, like, and super old lie detectors do. The whole thing is based on, they don't know that you're lying, but they know that you're nervous. They know that something's stressing you.
Yeah.
So he's looking at the commissioner and going, this guy, I guess you could argue he is stressed because he might bring about fucking World War III, the end of the world with the spacers. Like,
I mean, I get it.
like I heard from all these murder
but
shows.
he's literally like their number one suspect.
Yeah.
He tells us he's the number one suspect, and then he's like, I mean,
yeah, because he was there.
Do it.
Because he was supposed to be there.
Well, he's the one that finds the body.
Yeah. Yeah. But he is a police commissioner, and at this time, nobody knows he's connected to the terrorist medievalist group.
I think I knew it was him too, because there's so much stress on like how he could be trusted, how he's just so whatever, like chill, not chill, but like how he's so able to get along with them, and like.
To your point, before we get too far away, it's Bailey's finger was pointing that glitter in the grooves of the door. What was it, Daneel? 2 small slivers of glass, said the robot. It meant nothing to us. It will now. They're portions of concave lenses. And he tells them to...
So it was in the grooves of the door.
Yeah, like I guess it hit the ground, and then it splashed, it ricocheted like, smashed upwards into the...
If it's like a sliding door, it's in like the track.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe something like that.
I mean,
so it's like, it's not... So that wouldn't be a silly point. I think more to your point with like... Alright, we have to ignore the fact that you scanned his brain, and even after murdering someone, like you didn't scan his brain before, and like you scanned his brain after the guy's dead.
Yeah.
So he should have been at peak strange at least.
Yeah.
Something should have been flagged as very strange about this guy's.
Like you would at least
brain.
be keeping an eye on his ass.
Yeah, yeah.
At least if it was me, which I get, you could say Daneel probably, because he's a robot, wouldn't have put that together. He would just be looking for X. That could be part of it too. He could have just been looking for like the sociopath mark.
Yeah, I know that's true. In his defense, like it scanned your brain, but maybe it's comparing it to models of countless murderers.
I mean, he's also not
and
able
he doesn't have that brain
exactly
type.
Like he's not able to take an abstraction out, so
yeah,
him being particularly nervous wouldn't necessarily...
It's like health markers. I don't know how to compare it, but like you don't have diabetes because you don't have the things we're looking for. And it's like, yeah, but I'm still jacked up in a way that's similar, but just, well, that's not what this device was trained on to measure.
All right, I feel better now.
Yeah. Not so bad, but yeah, I mean, like we said, there's always some degree of hand waviness. And to clear up the point, just in case it wasn't super clear, since we've already talked about the ending, we'll work our way back up to it. Yeah, you can't bring guns into Space Town. But the robot follows orders. He put the gun in the robot, right? He
gives Sammy R the gun.
Yeah.
And Sammy R walks from
and he tells
the
him
police
to go there.
station to Spacer Town.
Which is only a mile away, by the way. I heard that again. I was going over some notes. I'm like, I almost want like details. It sucks I didn't have like this specific notes. So maybe I'll work on that one day. But
we do a little walk with the baby. That's 0.6 miles.
Yeah. And so that's how living in that's how cave dwelling these people are, and how tech, they're afraid of nature. It's unthinkable that they would only walk a mile through.
You're supposed to be able to run a mile in less than like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, but it's scary. It's got wind and the sun and all that shit out there.
There's
or the
air.
moon. The moon's scary as shit.
Fresh air out there.
Yeah, fresh air on your face, in your nose. That's freaky. So yeah, that's why when we were stuck on, I was stuck on the shape of these things because it's domed over, but it goes underground, but it's not as deep underground. There's also buildings. So I'm like, I want to make a cool collection of all the quotes describing these two areas. But one of them was that it's literally only a mile away. So he gave our Sammy the gun. Our Sammy walks this mile through the woods, comes in one of the unmonitored entrances because they only monitor the entrance between.
I mean, there is no other, like, so for Space Town, it's technically like...
There's one official entrance.
It's like a dome shape.
Yeah.
There's an official entrance, but it's open to, like,
there's millions of streets into the wilderness for the farms.
He just walks into town and gives the commissioner the gun.
So he gives the commissioner the gun. The commissioner's going to kill the robot, but robot looks exactly like its creator.
Accidentally kills the doctor.
Yeah.
Runs back down, gives gun to Sammy R. Then comes back a little later like, oh.
Yeah, I'm here for my meeting. Because he showed up early for the meeting.
And Daneel's like, the doctor is dead.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah, my creator has been obliterated.
It seems he is missing a chest cavity.
Yeah. I was going to add something there, but I forgot. If you want to just go back.
I didn't mean to. Yeah, let's just start.
It's okay.
I think let's
we'll
build up, because there's
up to
more that happens. That's only a
there's my favorite conversation is Mr. Eastman. I really think that'd be a good shirt.
But even the
New
ending
York
we've given
East.
is not the full ending. But I think you need to kind of walk through in order to fully understand why the ending makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Trying
make
not
sense.
to squeak my chair.
So they're with that doctor. They had brought Dr. Garrigal to the police station. He's an expert on all the robotics, and he's going to be needed for Elijah Baley to have his new theory on who the murderer is, which is that it's just Daneel.
Which there's a very cool note. So the doctor takes a train all the way from Washington to get to New York. But it turns out that Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York had grown in the last 2 centuries to the point where all nearly touched. The 4-city area was almost the official name of the entire stretch of the coast. And like they had just recently connected like a train. Because they were like, I mean, not a train, like an expressway. Because everybody was like, you flew here? And he was like, by God, no, I'm terrified of flying. I took the expressway.
I didn't even think of... I forgot. That's funny. Yeah, how scary would that be to these people? And I don't know if you mentioned it.
That's exactly what he says. Like, he's so used to being in total control and in the city that when he's up in the air and like surrounded by nothing, he's like has a panic attack.
It's scarier than space flight to these people, probably. I don't know if we mentioned it before, but Neuromancer's going to play with that, with the whole one big metropolitan area connected from New York down to Atlanta.
Is she turning over?
No, she's okay. We also are watching the baby monitor, but she is going back. She's good. Yeah. So our expert is here, and
so they get a private conference room, and they go in. Immediately, Baley introduces himself to the doctor, and they start talking about robots. And he's trying to figure out if there's a way that a robot can be built without the first law. That's like really how he opens this up to the doctor.
Yeah, that it won't hurt humans.
Yeah. So, the whole concept is that Bailey's trying to see if there's any way that Daneel killed the doctor.
Yeah, you want me to read that? It was my estimation that it would take 50 years to develop the basic theory of a non-Asinian positronic brain. That is, one in which the basic assumptions of the 3 laws are disallowed, and bring it to the point where robots similar to modern models could be constructed. So that was so weird to me, and it's going to be weird to Baley. Like, only 50 years?
I mean, doctor, that we've been building robots for several thousand years. In all that time, hasn't anybody or any group had 50 years to spare?
And he says, the human race, Mr. Baley, has a strong Frankenstein complex. A what? That's a popular name derived from a medieval novel describing a robot that turned on its creator. Yeah, and I love he says, and I never read the novel myself. So it's cool, like how it's just in the ethos, like, there's biblical stories throughout this book, and so it's like, Frankenstein is just part of the culture.
I love that Frankenstein survives everything, by the way.
Yeah, and as a robot, it's very cool.
So a robot with the first law built in could not kill a man. Never, unless such killing were completely accidental or unless it were necessary to save the lives of 2 or more men. In either case, the positronic potential built up would ruin the brain past recovery.
Yeah.
So that's...
Small detour here. I guess one of my fuzzy memories was, and I don't know if this is a plot in a later Asimov book, so I hope I'm not spoiling anything, but he has to have addressed this somewhere in a short story or something. Why couldn't you, if I say, here, R. Sammy, I want you to give this present to him. You're going to point it at him, and it's going to be a confetti launcher. Here you go. And he fucking blasts. Couldn't you tell somebody that, here's this device. Couldn't you make him a suicide bomber super easy?
You probably could, and they probably wouldn't know.
Yeah. I want you to go in, and this is going to play a funny song when you press this button here.
I don't know what it would do to their brain. Like, that note there, that the positronic potential built up would ruin the brain past recovery.
Yeah.
I do wonder if they would.
So it would have to be destroyed. Yeah.
Like,
it would spaz out and go nuts.
They would just guilt themselves into sadness and...
That's why suicide bomber robot. I don't know if that's a plot in any of his stuff.
I almost feel like to be...
It has to go out with them.
The mercy there would be to take the robot out with them.
Yeah. But I don't see how that would violate because it doesn't know.
Yeah.
Even one of the flaws we were saying that Daneel mentions before, like, well, you can hurt a person if it's to save more people. Like,
well, that right there said 2 or more men.
Yeah, so isn't that everybody throughout history was one of my critiques when we were talking about it. It's like, who's the person that thinks they're doing worse for humanity?
Well, that was why I was like confused. If or one of my original hunches was like, could Sammy R have been the murderer?
Yeah, that's what my brain was
of
playing
the commissioner,
with.
Because you could play that if he doesn't take out the doctor, more humans would suffer.
Yeah.
Like, could you logic a robot into this?
You get into the ultimate AI thingy, agnostic weirdos, with, if I tell a robot I want you to end human suffering, the only way to do that is to end humanity. Like, kill all the humans so that nobody ever suffers.
Which is what we end up finding out in generations Foundation 5 or / Cortana from, like, Halo.
Yeah.
Those I feel like those are the 2 routes they could go.
Mm-hmm.
Either, like, I'm going to secretly watch over things and instill the 3 laws and hope that mankind starts to live by those laws, because you guys are incapable of doing things that can't hurt yourselves.
Yeah.
Like a little, like the way our baby keeps wanting to touch the outlets all of a sudden.
Yeah, that it requires
all of our outlets
killing
are
so many people just to do it. Yeah.
We don't let her touch them. But just a disclaimer. Like, I refuse to have everyone be like, what? Everybody
from Mao to Stalin to Hitler, like, they all, you could argue that they thought their worldview would bring about better lives for more people in the future. So even if you're killing literally millions today, it's to set up a better life for billions of people in the future. So that's why I'm like, all these laws for the robots sound so cool, and I'm like, but that's how everybody operates. Everybody operates off of, I'm not going to do a net bad thing. So I don't know. I was like, is that a huge critique of Asimov? Is this not as cool of laws? Like, maybe
No, I think if anything, it just opens it up where the laws, I mean, he really built the laws to guide, and I think it ended up, that's why he ends up at Foundation 5, where, like, the robots are basically trying to guide humanity.
Oh my god. So I don't forget, one of my deeper funny points was in Foundation, the end of Foundation 5, Foundation and Earth, where he all but says that the little kid is an alien. So with Sifi in here, that we need to merge, we need to, not be afraid of technology, but also not let it ruin our lives. Don't become a slave to technology, and don't use it to be a weird tyrant either. A nice, healthy, cooperative life with robots. So do you think he ended it in there so that he's trying to say, and in his late old age with HIV, he's saying, I ain't gonna write this whole fucking series, but somebody in the future could write the series where there's Sifi but with aliens, whatever clever acronym you'd have, that you need to coexist with. Because my critique was, Daneel sold us out to the aliens, but you could say, just like we were supposed to cooperatively live with aliens, you can't avoid it. It's unavoidable. It's going to be here. Find a way to coexist with them.
I want to say that until we read 6 and 7,
the prequels, though? But it's chronologically earlier.
I know, but I have a feeling that him going backward is for a reason.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because everybody hated Foundation Earth.
I almost
that's the
want
out of
to
universe.
Hold
all right, I know, but it was a cool thought that popped in my head. Like,
but overall, I feel like he wants you to be able to explore these things the same way Trevize and like,
because you could insert anybody here. Of course, he's writing this in the 40s and 50s, and you got civil rights, and people think it's insane to cross a race barrier, and yet different groups of whites have already done that. And my own family of British and Irish people shouldn't have ever gotten together. That's weirder than banging a robot.
Don't look at me. My people are from Spain.
Yeah, people from all over. But, you know what I mean? So then, like, thousands of years from now, we're going to have no concept of races and stuff. It's going to be Earthling versus Martian versus, Ionian and all this stuff. And then with robots, of course, and even then with aliens one day. So that was just my cool thing to, like, this first book in this is with Sifi. And then it ends with space alien merger, perhaps. But anyways, that's a random tangent. I just didn't want to mess up or forget.
Sorry,
you good?
A split thought came to me.
You're good. I could tell you've
'Cause,
looked
like-
into the ether.
Well, because
We're gonna have to have cameras just so people can sympathize with what I have to. When you get the download.
If Daneel merges with an alien,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean for the human race?
Yeah.
Travis really might have fucked us up, man.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying with the whole esoteric Asimov. He's saying that this is a bad ending. That, alright, you're going to get to one of my deeper points about the end of this book. It's not, maybe the medievalists were right in a sense. Nobody's fully right in here, which is what's, I think, great. Like, that's why I think it's applicable to our lives. Let's have them do the failures so that we can get it right in real life. Because maybe we weren't supposed to have all these robot types, man. The robot ends up selling us out. Or somebody screwed up, at the very least, somebody screwed up Earth and all these things so much to, like you said, that the robot has to be our nanny. Like, if we don't get our shit together, something's going to come in and impose it on us, and we're going to hate that even more.
Yeah, the robot, for whatever reason, feels like they should be taking care of us.
Yeah, because it knows that Earth is radioactive and abandoned by that time. So
Well, not just
clearly
that,
something...
I think Daneel is learning so much about man.
Yeah.
Like, he describes himself as originally being designed to just take in information. So
Yeah.
as we see his character just taking in information, we're going to see him coming to conclusions on man.
Yeah, and eventually, like I said, it is...
Like, there's only so much information you can take in before you're going to decide something.
But it's just so funny that, like, he's wrong, though. Like, none of his plans worked. He couldn't keep the Empire alive. He couldn't keep, all these secret plots, Second Foundation, and all these things. He couldn't even keep Earth from being discovered. He did all these things, all his little secret agents that were deleting all the info on Earth. Earth still ends up being discovered by Travis.
Well, he ends up wanting Earth to be discovered.
I know, but I guess that's the point, too, though. Like,
but just by Travis and...
Yeah.
And he's literally controlling the Gaia lady and, like, kind of trying to push them. And God knows if he had other forces also helping to push them in this direction. But the Gaia lady...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bliss.
Yeah. She specifically is, like, he's using her as a...
He has, like, a mental conduit and look through the eyes of kind of thing, which
and
is...
like
super hand-wavy.
She doesn't even know. She's just being used.
Mm-hmm.
So...
I know there's so much silliness in that, but I guess my main point was you think that he's trying to get at, man, maybe it went wrong all the way back in book 1 of the Robot series.
I also don't
with
know
Caves of
that
Steel.
he was part of the Empire. Like, I think he ends up...
But if he wasn't, then he also, like, where the hell were you? I'm saying this AI god is as fallible as the myths.
Because Earth was still alive, so I think he was hoping that the Empire was gonna... This is in my mind how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a little bit like Cortana. He's on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
He's there for so long, he starts to see Earth deteriorate. He's seeing everyone go off. He sees a bunch of people decide robots are not the way. He's like, maybe they're right. Let's see how this plays out. Empire starts to deteriorate, or he can see it's going to deteriorate. He teams up with Selden to try to save the human race.
Yeah.
They come up with the Selden plan,
Mm-hmm.
and then he basically starts to, like, the foundations are where he's going to be controlling things.
Yeah, first and second.
Like, he also, I feel like he wants to have a semi hands-off, like, what's it, like, kind of, he wants to be hands-off in the beginning.
Yeah.
Kind of see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mule happens, because he's also been setting up Gaia on the side.
Yeah.
Knowing that, like, he's like, all right, y'all do the Selden plan. I'm going to go get Gaia started. So by the time Gaia's strong, Selden's plan will be like, we'll meet up.
Yeah.
But then the mule happens, and he's like, y'all can't be trusted as a species.
Yeah.
Like, and now some of you don't even want the Selden plant. You're a mess.
Yeah.
I need to be more hands-on with you people.
I wonder if the deeper message, like,
Something like
this manipulating, this trying to finagle behind closed doors doesn't work.
Funny.
Who knows? Yeah. But anyways, we'll continue the
All right, so
thing here.
we're talking to the robotics guy. One of the cool snippets I liked was that we ask him why robots look like people.
Oh, yeah.
He does tell us that the decision was made on the basis of economics. Look here, Mr. Baley, if you were supervising a farm, would you care to build a tractor with a positronic brain, a reaper, a harrow, a milker, an automobile, and so on with a positronic brain? Or would you rather have ordinary, unbrained machinery with a single positronic robot to run them all? I warn you that the second alternative represents only a 50th and 100th to the expense, or 100th to 100th the expense.
Yeah, which, fun fact, that's a huge thing in Star Wars. That's why everything looks humanoid. That way it can use weaponry and vehicles.
Like, basically, we already had everything designed for people. So if your robot's a person, it can use it.
Yeah. It's same logic. It's very straightforward.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So it was cool. I mean,
I did like that, though. And of course, I'm saying Star Wars has it, but a lot of people are drawing from Asimov's work.
So then they talk about how the outer worlds manufacture robotics that are much more humanoid than our own. Could they manufacture a robot so humanoid that it could pass for human under ordinary conditions? Dr. Garrigal lifted his eyebrows and considered that. I think they could, Mr. Baley. Do you suppose, went on Baley relentlessly, that they could make a robot that would fool you into thinking it was a human? Mr. Garrigal is the highest robotics expert on Earth at this time.
Yeah, which is huge.
I don't know if he's like the highest, but he is up there. He's like...
I think Baley says he is the highest in the reveal at the end.
The roboticist tittered. Oh, my dear Mr. Baley, I doubt that, really. There's more to a robot than just his appear... Here... Mr. Garrigal froze in the middle of that word. Slowly, he turned to our Daneel, and his pink face went very pale. Because he basically realizes that he's been sitting. So, Mr. Baley, when he introduced Daneel, he said, "This is Mr. Daneel Olivaw," and left out the very important R.
Yeah, of course, because you're supposed to have the R designated robot.
He's really testing to see how personable this robot is.
Yeah, can the world's leading expert on robots tell that it's a robot? And he could not. Which is, because part of the theory all along, even from his wife and from the commissioner, was that the rumor spread that it was probably just somebody in the shoe store saw.
Yeah, they were able to tell that he's a robot.
Yeah, they even mentioned some specific university or something.
He only catches on to this because Baley's basically laid it out for him.
Yeah, and the robot stared at him.
So he asks him, "Tell me now, in constructing a robot as humanoid as this one, with the deliberate purpose of having it pass as human, is it not necessary to make its brain possess properties as close to that of a human brain as possible?" "Certainly." "Very well. Could not such a humanoid brain lack the first law?" No, impossible.
Yeah.
So
because Bailey's trying to get at, like, if it's so human, then won't it be as flawed and disorganized as a human?
Yeah. So Bailey's like, I mean, how can you be so sure?
Yeah.
And the doctor's literally just going to be like, I mean, we can prove it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you don't know the field.
It's not
we have a test for this.
It's not difficult to test the first law. I've never had to, you understand, but it's simple enough.
Yeah, I get you. What I'm getting at is that more important and fundamental... Oh, yeah, never mind. We got to read what happens here. Because he's saying, like, isn't that going to be super difficult to figure out? But is this where he compares it to blindness? Yeah, of course, yeah. He says, if I wanted to test basically your basal metabolic rate or some cognitive function, it needs all this complex stuff. But if I wanted to see if you're blind, I can just put my hands in front of your eyes and tell. Like, in a weird way, the more basic the thing is, the easier it is to detect if there's a flaw in that system. What I'm getting at is that the more important...
The more important and fundamental the property being tested, the simpler the needed equipment. It's the same in a robot. The first law is fundamental. It affects everything. If it were absent, the robot could not react properly in 24 obvious ways.
Yeah.
So
somewhere he compares it to hitting the knee, where you get a reflex.
Well, so that's after, because basically he's gonna take out like this little his handbook of robotics, and he feels so giddy because he like built a super compact way that's like in his wristwatch or something for him to pull this book out.
Yeah.
And he's got a viewer, and he's basically going to start asking Daneel all these questions, and some of them make sense, some of them sound like gibberish to Baley. Like at one time he asked, "If you have two cousins 5 years apart in age and the younger is a girl, what sex is the older?" And Daneel answered, inevitably, Baley thought, it is impossible to say on the information given. So it's like, when he gives the responses, little viewer whirls around and his handbook changes. And so he goes and he asks Baley a bunch of questions, and he's like, all right, he's good. He has the first law.
Yeah. And I was saying some of those being strange or just visceral or odd it reminded me of Blade Runner, androids. Dream of Electric Sheep. Like, some of the questions were obviously to evoke emotion, humanoid emotion, but some were just so weird to throw you off. So that was pretty cool.
So he goes, so that's where Bailey's like, could he have falsified his answers? Baley was floundering and he knew it. Of course not. That's the difference between a man and a robot. So Bailey's basically like, I mean, are you sure?
Yeah, he's realizing his theory.
You asked really weird questions. And he's like, that's where he's like, I mean, do you ask your doctor why he hits you on the knee? Like, well, I'm looking for, I know. Don't tell me how to do my job.
Yeah, it's so fundamental. I love that Baley is so logical. That's why he's such a cool character, and he is explored more. But it's the way that he's going from the most logically simple one. The most simple would be there just isn't a murder. Like when he posited before that this isn't a robot at all. It's just the actual guy.
Yeah.
And now he's saying, all right, well then if it's not that way, then the robot just did it. The robot's the guy in the room with them. Nobody suspects it's just the being that was in the room when the guy got killed.
So he's like, well, what about when you like pointed the blaster at the people? And he's like, there is no charge in it, agreed Daneel. If you will look closely, you will see that there's never been a charge in it. The blaster has no ignition bud and cannot be used.
Yeah, it's just a completely
Yet to
empty.
carry a charged and usable blaster might have made it possible for me to hurt a human being by accident, a thing which is, of course, unthinkable. I would have explained this at the time, but you were angry and would not listen.
Yeah.
So this is where I really think if you ever gave a robot something that was like an explosive,
it would have to know.
Even if they didn't know and something happened, they would guilt themselves.
Oh yeah. I think they would literally go psychotic.
Yeah,
like
because
mentally
even
unwell.
if in their mind it was an accident or they should be forgiven, because the first law is so important and fundamental.
He's got to have explored this in some story, because I'm just like, well, what do you mean by psychotic breakdown? Like, would he kill other people then? He's already killed somebody. Like, does his whole personality matrix rupture and now he is a danger and now...
That, or he's just going to walk into the ocean.
Spazzes out. I just picture literally short-circuiting, sparks are flying, banging head on wall. But I thought you were going to go, if I give him, hey, here's this cool little prank I'm doing on my friends. It's going to be so funny when you walk in and press his button on this little box that has a, ticker on it. He would maybe can't do that if he doesn't understand how the device works. Maybe there's an implied risk.
He might ask you, like, what is it and what is the risk?
And have to inspect it himself, because, like,
possibly
Baley, because Daneel is explaining in such detail that there's not even these necessary parts to activate the blaster. He didn't even get, you could say his creator gave him... It's not just
that it doesn't have a charge. Even if you were to put charges in it, it doesn't have a trigger, basically.
And you could say his creator to explain that to him, and he wanted to have gone through that depth on his own.
He might have researched the weapon enough to say, look, this is how it is guaranteed that there is no accident can happen. I'm basically walking around with a glorified toy.
But I guess to my, like, the explosions or even like a hacking event, like, you could tell him to open the email and it could understand emails, and you get emails. People fall for these things all the time. It's not malicious, and they understand how it works. So you could tell him, I want you to go on the computer and just click on that first email there. Click on the link. Something to that extent, with either weaponry or the robot could be used to do evil.
For sure, but what's the difference? You could do that with anyone.
Yeah, but at least like in this case where the whole bubble gate force field thing that nobody could get through, but the robot could. So if there's a scenario like that. Maybe. We'll see as we keep reading.
It is interesting.
Because there's so many of these robot stories before this, and of course, this
I'm
robot series after.
He's got to play with it.
At least in a short story.
So Bailey's in a situation. Persistently, he sought the solution in Spacetown. Twice he had accused our Daneel, once as a human being in disguise and once as an admitted and actual robot, each time as a murderer. Twice the accusation had been bent back and broken.
Yeah.
Against his will, he was forced to turn his thoughts into the city, and since last night he dared not. Certain questions battered at his conscious mind, but he would not listen. He felt he could not. If he heard them, he couldn't help but answer them, and oh God, he didn't want to face the answers.
Well, yeah, what's he freaking out about here? I forget this part.
Because basically, like, he's realizing that Daneel's innocent, and he's been trying to find every single way that he can turn this on someone within Spacetown, and he's realizing they're really going to have to actually look at people in the city.
Yeah, by thoughts into the city. Like, it's definitely an Earthling. Yeah, okay. That was his cope to avoid World War III spacers glassing Earth.
Yep. And at this point, he's having these thoughts. He's already sent the doctor away. Thank you for helping. You can go home. And he's having, like, lunch because we're always eating in this book.
But it works. It's so good for aspiring writers.
And Daneel's sitting off. He's, like, at his own table, by the way. It's, like, the first time, because they're using, like, the police. They're still at the station, so they're using, like, the break room. And
you don't have my favorite line highlighted here.
I'm so sorry.
He says, because Bailey sees him bring in the food, and Bailey's cooling lunch greedily. He says, chicken, he said. It's getting so you can't get it without a doctor's prescription. Because remember, these people survive mostly on yeast, protein, just nutrient-dense gruel. This guy has a real piece of chicken.
The person that says this is another person. He's another plainclothesman, but he's a C5. C5 also. And he's like inspecting Bailey's lunch, and he's like, well, I'm gonna go out to eat in a minute, you keep it, because I don't remember. Oh yeah, Bailey kind of like, he's like, yeah, you want some? Because he's like, yeah, he's having a crisis and realizing
he doesn't have
a lot of an appetite because he's
realizing Earth is about to be destroyed over a single murder that he can't figure out.
So the guy goes, say, what's doing with the commish? The commissioner. And Nora said, don't get me wrong, I don't care if you get promoted. I just mean that if you got any pull with the commish, how about using it for the kid?
The kid that was replaced.
There was no need of any answer to that. Vincent Barrett, the youngster who had been moved out of his job to make room for our Sammy, was shuffling up from an unnoticed corner of the room. So this is like a red herring? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, to throw him off.
Yeah, like Asimov's bringing this character in to throw us off.
He's been...
I'm just letting you know up front now.
Because
really. We've already told you the ending.
Because if you're here,
And because then we also have, like, Norris moved in close and spoken to Bailey's ear. Someone's got to stop this sort of thing. They're going to move out Shen Lo now. What? Haven't you heard? No, I haven't. Damn it, he's a C3. He's got 10 years behind him. Yeah.
So even detectives are being replaced, which was theorized so even within just the events of these couple days.
Well, they don't say what he is. He could be a C3 and like...
Yeah, but I guess they're all cops. Yeah, maybe not a detective, but they're all... They made it sound like Vince was like the office boy, like just the general help. So he got replaced by a robot, but it's like, he makes the coffees. Not that difficult of a job. Because Bailey muses earlier, like... You think they could really replace... He realizes that Daneel's smarter, better than him in most things. And most superficial things. Most performance-based things. Why not replace all the cops and detectives with robots?
So, this whole section... Because we've had people tell us that the rumors aren't true. But he's talking to this guy, and he's going to bring up... how supposedly the sub-etheric dancer is really a robot. And then he's going to basically, like, they let the kid, because the kid's like, can I walk around because I miss seeing the old place? And they're like, yeah, it's fine, go be sad. Right. And then we have this chunk of the conversation which goes, it looks as though the medievalists are right, which is Phil. You mean back to the soil? Is that it, Phil? No, I mean about the robots back to the soil. Old Earth has an unlimited future. We don't need robots, that's all.
Yeah.
Baley muttered, 8 billion people and the uranium running out. What's unlimited about it? There's no way you can stop mankind, Lige. You've got to be optimistic about it and have faith in the old human brain. Our greatest resource is ingenuity, and we'll never run out of that, Lige. So, like, it makes you think that there's this medievalist group must be in the police office. Like,
yeah, but my thing too.
But this guy's not, like, by him saying that, like, we should get it going in with the commissioner, it makes you think he's not in with the commissioner. So it's supposed to, like, make you think, like, the medievalist.
Yeah.
If they are infiltrated in the police station, doesn't seem like they're so high up as they with the commissioner.
Yeah, because they think Baley is Biffle's best friends with the commissioner.
Yeah.
They're the out
and they're
group.
like trying to get him on their, they're talking to him.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they? If they're best friends with the commissioner, they wouldn't have to.
Even though we already have all the clues that, the commissioner has his window. He says he loves the fact that he saw rain twice this month and all this stuff. Nobody ever sees rain. He romanticizes.
Like I said, this was definitely Asimov trying to throw everyone off.
For sure. But also throw you off on the, like I say, what is his actual message here? I confirmed earlier, by the way, this is kind of important. He really said that. Asimov really said that he doesn't see, like claustrophobia is described as a claustrophile. He loves. You saw that somewhere?
No, you told me.
But I told you that I heard this, but I wasn't sure if it was true. He really did say that somebody had to ask him, like, wow, that's so nightmarish. And he says, really, what's so nightmarish about it? Living in the caves of steel. So I am thoroughly confused. We need people in the comments. How is this whole book is critiquing Caves of Steel? The ending, which we'll get to the amazing speeches with Eastman and Bailey's own speech at the end of the book, and even Sifi, like you could say, he's clearly...
Yeah, like...
This whole book is a critique of Caves of Steel. How is Asimov saying he doesn't see... Unless he just means in the very, very specific. He doesn't see what's wrong with... If we were eating steaks and hanging out with friends and having a great, full, fulfilled life, but underground.
In a funny way, this guy might be more Asimov's thinking than the medievalist or the... Where he's like, no, what?
Yeah,
forget the soil. We're just going to live in our caves of steel. We just don't need the robots.
Yeah, that's true too. But also the ingenuity, but Bailey's saying you don't even get to live in the caves of steel. There's too many people, and the uranium's running out. Like it's all powered on nuclear energy.
I know, but the other guy's like, I don't know. We'll build rooms out of air.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying though he's kind of right. Asimov keeps putting perhaps the correct opinion in the, overtly the esoteric fool. I'm saying that is right. You can trust you got to be optimistic and have faith in the old human brain. Our greatest resource is ingenuity, and we'll never run out of that. I'm like, that is true. I'm like, wait a second. So this guy's not the dumb, backwards, medievalist guy.
He's like an in-between.
Yeah, but he does that with a lot of them, and like the robots did take our jobs, and the robots, the best robot of all, Daneel, failed to be our curator, and then he sold us out to the aliens at the end.
Well, that's in Foundation, but
that's what I mean. But like, I know he didn't know that now, and when he wrote this story, but it's Asimov, the writer. Anyways,
so basically, Baley tells him, "Look, I actually think it would be like with how sensitive our system is right now, where any catastrophe could shut us down. I really think it'd be better to just send our population out, into uninhabited worlds." Yeah,
and that's because he had already talked to Fast Up. Yeah, we already covered that.
So the guy's like, all right, bud. Think you've been, I'll let you eat your chicken.
Yeah, where's that?
Clearly need it.
But where's that?
It's after Baley said, I think it would be easier to ship off some of the surplus population myself. It was more an answer to the picture he had himself conjured up than anything Norris had said. Who'd have us, said Norris with a bitter lightness. Any uninhabited planet. Norris rose, patted Baley on the shoulder. Lige, you eat your chicken and recover. You must be living on knockout pills. He left, chuckling.
So that's what I mean by what Asimov is great at, and really, it's at the very last sentences of his of this book here. There's this weird want to say who's right here, and it's like, well, they're all kind of right in different ways. Like the ingenuity, it is nice. What sucks about civism is they're not creating anything. They're stuck. They're stagnant. So in a weird way, the medievalists are optimistic and believe in a future. They want change of some sort. Yeah. They want positive change. And so, but they don't think that we can go into space.
I mean, no human really, because
no
after
earthling.
the spacers took over, like the idea of colonizing is basically dead. I do think that picture's painted even with this guy where he's like, I don't want to go back to the soil, but like, or what, we're gonna go fly out and colonize a planet? Yeah, all right, bro.
But they know the spacers do that, so
that's what I mean.
But they think they won't let them do that.
No, in their minds, it's just that idea has been just for whatever reason put to bed. Like,
yeah,
as a planet, we did it with the spacers.
It sucks
because the spacers became so isolated, and because they got their whole culture, and we had the wars and stuff.
Yeah,
they're probably like, I don't know, man. Really, you think we're just gonna go colonize a planet? All right, bro.
That's what I mean. It's sadly and realistically, it's human to just tribalism. Like, we don't do that here. That's not what we do. That's like, those weirdos.
Because of the spacer culture, they're like, we don't.
Spacers are immoral and weird,
don't do that, bro.
And not like us, and we don't do that.
So, I think that's part of the problem with the human race right now.
Yeah.
So, he leaves, and Bailey's all sad, and our Daneel comes up, and he's like, the commissioner is not in his office, and it is not known when he'll be back. I've told our Sammy we will use it, and that he is to allow no one but the commissioner to enter. What are we going to use it for? Greater privacy. Surely you agree that we must plan our next move. After all, you do not intend to abandon the investigation, do you?
Yeah. Which is going to be important, of course. He is out of the office, the commissioner.
Yep. So, this is also where we find out that Daneel is... Because at this point, they didn't... Like, Elijah didn't know that Daneel was the cerebral analysis device that they used.
Yeah, on the commissioner. He's the one that actually did the scanning of the commissioner.
My original design remains essentially unaltered. I was constructed for the purpose of cerebral analysis.
Yeah.
He said, and Bailey asked him, if you measure the brain waves, what do you get out of it? Not thoughts, Elijah. I get a glimpse of emotion, and most of all, I can analyze temperament, the underlying drives and attitudes of a man.
Yeah.
For instance, it is I who was able to ascertain the Commissioner Enderby was incapable of killing a man under the circumstances prevailing at the time of the murder.
And to your point you were making before, like, maybe it's saying it's not even reading at the superficial level of your current mood.
I don't understand.
It's almost like IQ. Like, if you could picture the best IQ test, it's capturing you not when you're tired or drunk or whatever I'm doing right now that might have my functional IQ be lower. But it can get to my actual core.
But how would you not? I don't know.
And it gets to its core temperament. He isn't a murderer.
He isn't a murderer.
And even if he literally could have murdered somebody right now, like on accident, or you didn't even know, he fell asleep and hit the nuke button, like he rolled over and.
That's the only thing that would explain it, because.
Yeah.
I don't know how you kill someone and it doesn't alter something in you.
Yeah.
So,
and at least your temperament.
Yeah.
When he says the drives and attitudes, I'm like, I could see that, but...
Also, like, wouldn't his temperament be increasingly changing towards the spacers? Like,
yeah, and his attitude.
Yeah. Especially as they continue to investigate this, when he become more nervous and more angry and more...
Yeah.
Anyway, Bailey says they eliminate him as a suspect on your say-so, and Daneel says, yes, it is safe enough to do so. I'm a very delicate machine in that respect. Again, a thought struck Bailey. Wait, Commissioner Enderby didn't know he was being cerebral analyzed, did he? There was no necessity of hurting his feelings.
Which, super cool. Am I cutting you off? You're going to jump right in?
No, it was just that the Commissioner had been cerebral analyzed and had never known it. Our Daneel told the truth, so had the Commissioner. Because that was the only loophole that he had against the Commissioner, kind of, where the Commissioner had said he didn't know what cerebral analysis was, but the spacers were saying...
Yeah, he thought he caught him in a lie. Like,
yeah. Either him a lie or the spacers in a lie.
Yeah, somebody lied about him being tested, he thought. Because he's picturing it, like I'm sure Asimov meant, like a lie detector test. But it's not. Which also, so my point is that So Daneel was originally designed to just walk around and, live with us like the aliens that are amongst us, the shapeshifters. It's like he was supposed to just...
He's basically like a psychopath scanner, if
Yeah.
anyone knows what that show is.
And so that's what I was saying. So he's just going down the street, everybody he meets, he talks to, he's scanning their brain. And, though, is he scanning for... Are one of those attitudes, how do you word it, temperaments, drives, or attitudes that they want to go into space, that they want to become spacers. Because you have that whole, one of my favorite lines, that they did this weird rapture, this collection of people from DC and Moscow and somewhere else. During that big spacer war, there was this little moment where they evacuated, they collected a bunch of people. Not just leaders, just... Was it leaders explicit?
It was leaders and whoever.
Yeah. I got the vibe like
it's...
that
just got picked up.
Yeah. I figured it was like, if not
sure
political leaders,
not
like
seen
thought
again.
leaders. Yeah, like people that would be...
They for sure took key people too. It wasn't...
Okay, you're going the route that they took out like leadership so that we're screwed. Okay, like a military move.
in the rebellion, like...
Okay, it's a more of a military strike.
Lose its momentum.
How's it going? Secrets.
They grabbed a few other people, like some people...
No, you're right. Maybe I'm just thinking too deep. I'm like, or just differently. I thought it was like more of a secret society, kind of like these guys are in the in group. These guys are friendly to spacer philosophy. We don't hate these Earthlings. These are Earthlings that we want to get into space.
What I remember when they took a bunch of people was like the people were revolting against spacers. So I don't know if we're talking about the same...
Yeah.
Was it during the rebellion?
It was around then. There's just the one little sentence that says, I could probably find it one sec.
They took everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, he had been a small boy when the gleaming cruisers from outer space last sent down their soldiers into Washington, New York, and Moscow to collect what they claimed was theirs. So, they wouldn't think the leadership is theirs. Like,
no, but
that's not like I'm taking the president and the... Huh?
That was just when they came to like collect money or stuff. Like,
yeah,
they didn't take people. Like, what I remember, that was one incident. The incident where they were taking people, I remember it was during that big rebellion where they put up the wall and were making people do like the medical checks before they go into space or down.
Yeah.
And they collected key figures in the rebellion.
Okay.
And like it just kind of, they killed the momentum of it. They did grab a couple other people.
Man, I'd love to know what happened with them. That's funny.
Pretty sure they were never heard of again.
I know, right? They got experimented on in the bowels. Also, crazy weird tangent. Solaria becomes Caves of Steel. I didn't even think of that. They're all mini Caves of Steel. One person lives deep underground. The whole fucking complex is underground.
So like,
I forget the kid's name.
The kid Fallon that we take.
Yeah.
He's like,
yeah, I know, right?
They're like, I never actually got to meet Bander, right?
Yeah.
I always
the
think
dad
of
kind of. Yeah, I know Bender.
who would have been their biological parental person.
Yeah, that's true. their mom dead.
Yeah, because basically, Bander had Fallon and gave him to a robot to raise.
Yeah,
and that robot was.
Sorry, that was just so beautiful that Solaria in this time of the robot series is idealistic, is like maybe something to shoot at, but it becomes its own mini Caves of Steel. But then weirdly progressing their own genes. Anyways, I just want to get that in.
We're gonna get there.
Yeah.
At some point.
Mm-hmm.
So, Baley tells Daneel, I tell you, I know the type of people that become medievalists. They're soft, dreamy people who find life too hard for them here and get lost in an ideal world of the past that never really existed.
That is a direct insult to modern day, the Instagram people I was telling you about, they're idealizing farm life, like medieval stuff. Like peasant life. And
so Daneel and him and Baley are talking, and Daneel goes, how did Jesse find out I was a robot?
Mm-hmm.
Suspect.
Yeah. She's the super big suspect right now.
And he's like, I know where you're going. I really think that we need to drop this. And he's like, I'm sorry to interrupt, partner Elijah, but there is no rumor. If there were, the city would be alive with unrest today. I have checked reports coming into the department, and this is not so. There simply is no rumor. Therefore, how did your wife find out?
Let's baby break pause there.
Oh no.
We're back. Baby's okay. We were going over how they found out. How did the wife know about the rumor of the robot?
Jehoshaphat. What are you trying to say? Do you think my wife is one of the members of... Yes, Elijah.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife's a medievalist.
Why, Ayada? How dare you? Doesn't say that.
No.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by the phrase. Certainly, I approve of your readiness to suspect me. You had your reasons. They were wrong, but they might easily have been right. Equally strong evidence points to your wife.
Because
like,
basically,
now it's
Bailey's
time
like,
to turn it towards you, pal.
Yeah, Bailey's like, "Are you trying to get even with me?" And he's like, "No, sir." But
yeah, this isn't me being a petty robot.
Yeah, like, but Daneel's like, for the same reason that you thought it was me, I think it's her. She's involved.
And I'm the calm, rational
I
one
merely
here.
say that she is a member of the conspiracy. I say that she should be questioned.
Mm-hmm. The medievalists aren't after our blood. It's not the way they do things, but they are trying to get you out of the city.
I almost feel like we should just speed up a little bit.
No, it's true. I didn't know if you wanted to read that part.
No.
Okay. We should.
I feel like we already kind of covered it. Bailey doesn't think... he thinks they're pretty soft, the medievalist. And what's interesting is that basically, as they're talking about his wife, they're going to get a call from our Sammy.
Mm-hmm.
Our Sammy's slurring voice said, "There is a lady here who wishes to see Lige. I told her he is busy, but she will not go away. She says her name is Jessie."
Mm-hmm. His wife is at the police station.
Yep. And he's basically like, "What is going on?"
Yeah.
"Let her in," said our Daneel calmly, and his brown eyes rose unemotionally to meet the panicky glare of Bailey's. So chapter 14, Jessie comes running in.
Which is called Power of a Name because they had to play with her being a Jezebel.
Yeah.
From the Biblio.
So what's gonna happen is Jessie's gonna come in. She's gonna be crying, and she's gonna tell him, "I can't go on, Lige. I can't sleep or eat. I've got to tell you." And he goes, "It isn't you, is it?"
The murderer?
"Yes, Jessie. You didn't mind being called a... Oh, no. Sorry. That's wrong." Because she turns to Daneel and she's like, It is you, isn't it?" He goes, "Yes, Jessie. You don't mind being called a robot?" "No, Jessie. It is what I am."
Yeah.
"And I don't mind being called a fool and an idiot and a submersive agent because it's what I am."
Yup. Jesse! Groaned Bailey.
So...
Yeah. It finds out that she has been...
They, like, get
Morton.
her to put herself together, and they go down underground, and she's, like, not excited to go underground. And when they're talking to her underground, she's like, "Why do we have to meet here? Like, why do you want me to tell you everything here?" And they're like, "This is one of the safest places to do it." And she's like, "All right."
Yeah.
"I joined a medievalist group.
Yep.
18 years married."
Yeah.
I take back what I said in the first talk we ever did of this.
What?
This guy does not know his wife at all.
I don't remember you saying that.
I was like, I mean, I felt like they could kind of like send signals to each other the way I feel like I do with you sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you would know if I'm in some secret.
Well, I didn't want to bring this up here on the pod, but you know how I feel about aliens? Maybe there should be a group of people that meet, and you didn't know about that at all. I made the eye movements and everything. You weren't picking that up at all?
What's hilarious is that we're like hermits, and we have like 3 friends.
We live in caves of
we live in the caves
wood
of
and
concrete.
cement. Yeah, caves of concrete.
But our cave is very nice.
Yeah, it's a secret society. You want to know
There's
about
windows.
my yeah, that's true. We can watch the real rain. Yeah, so he didn't know that she was in this medievalist group, but I do like how they paint it, and especially in the 50s, you gotta think of like, communist groups and even Nazi groups that were in the US and, Britain. But they paint it as these guys aren't super serious anti-government, like...
He literally...
They
so
literally
like,
have punch parties. They just meet up and I forget the wording. I'm sure you got it highlighted. To get
the story out is kind of hilarious because they go underground after it. So like first she's like hysterical and her makeup's running and everything, and they're like, put yourself back together, and she's like, it'll take 2 minutes. She literally takes like 15 minutes to get her makeup fucking back on.
I have to pause so we don't taken off of Apple and all of our other great friends everywhere. I meant aliens from space that I was implying I was a member of. Just for the record, so I don't get put on an actual watch list. And my joke there, I was not in a secret illegal alien group. That just hit me. I was like, holy shit, somebody's gonna think I mean illegal aliens. As a
side rant, he had like dreams about actual aliens.
Oh, we both got bombarded by space dreams last night.
Yeah, and I didn't know that there's like a bunch of space stuff.
Because I was listening to Lovecraft out loud while we were sleeping. Not the smartest.
Because he like lost one of his headphones behind the bed.
You said I could play it out loud. And nobody else could hear it.
I did, because
but apparently our subconscious heard it.
Your headphone's like on my side of the bed.
I know, it's very scary with the baby. I'm literally terrified. That's scarier than Cthulhu, I tell you what.
Alright.
Anyways. So the medievalist...
Like, he basically, like, it's funny, the interactions between Baley and his wife. Because he's like, get it over with, Jesse, please. Have you committed a crime, an actual crime? And she's like... shaking her head, and he's like, now hold on to yourself, no hysterics, just say yes or no, Jesse. Have you, he hesitated, killed anyone?
I know, he really thinks she might have killed him.
The look on Jesse's face was promptly transmitted to indignation. Why, Elijah Baley?
Yeah. You don't
yes
know
or no,
me.
Jesse? No, of course not.
I
just love immediately,
I'm a policeman
no hysterics.
at work.
How dare you?
Yeah, really.
So, she starts telling him her, like, story of how she ended up when they got into this fight that we touched on in the
whole
one.
Purpose of that conversation on the fight and her name and the Jezebel.
Oh, he literally, so you remember, Lige, the argument we had about Jezebel? He turned to our Daneel in an automatically defensive explanation. Jesse's full name is Jezebel. She's not fond of it and doesn't use it.
Yeah, he summarized that whole chapter.
Like an entire chapter summarized into one sentence. To
the robot. He's like, got it. Humans are weird. I'll be sure to sell you out in the future. Go ahead.
So she goes, so like basically, about you're saying that Jezebel was only a conservative who fought for the ways of her ancestors against the strange ways the newcomers had brought. After all, I was Jezebel and I always, and Baley supplied it. Identified yourself? Yes, but she shook her head almost immediately and looked away. But still I thought of her a lot, and somehow I got to thinking, it's just the same now as it was then. We Earth people had our old ways, and here were the spacers coming in with a lot of new ways and trying to encourage the new ways we had stumbled into ourselves and made the medievalist right.
Yeah.
So she's like, basically that was what triggered her joining the medievalist.
Yeah. And like they mentioned, like she gets to feel these guys are cosplaying as revolutionaries, most of them. But
it's hilarious. So like as she's telling the story, like, so she's at this point, she's like, so I joined the medievalist group. And he's like, well, how did you do that? Yeah. And as she's telling the story, he's like, of course she always has her like way. I want to find the quote. He's like, of course she has to tell the story her way.
Oh yeah,
and her way is like the most roundabout way.
Mm-hmm. Well, you remember March? It literally is a friend.
She's like, do you remember? I remember when I worked with Dr. Blah blah blah, and Elizabeth was there, and like
he's like, this better have something to do with this.
Like literally, it's so roundabout. Like so, her and Elizabeth, they would talk, and Elizabeth was always like showing off how she was a medievalist, and then. Like, so, moral of the story is she joins a group through this lady, even though she was a cop's wife. Mm-hmm. And they just get together for punch, and they meet underground in the same, like, underground that they're in now. And he's like, no one ever ran into you guys? She's like, yeah. We would just meet underground and have punch. Like, they even brought snacks.
Yeah.
And like this is like these are the roads that the cops and the firefighters and all these people use to get around.
Yeah, but it's so much.
And they're like, we would bring folding tables and chairs, and we
because it's funny. It's a group that meets out in the woods. It's their equivalent to them meeting just in some weird, obscure, dark part of the underground city. But in a weird way, it's probably more harder to detect them. then it would just be meeting out in the woods. Like, nobody's gonna see you. And it'd be easy to just play it off as something else. But like they say, it's funny how they make it look kind of cutesy. Like, it's just a group. They just meet up and complain about...
Well, that's the thing. So Bailey's like, I don't get it. So
but it made her feel like a Jezebel.
If it were all as harmless as that, why have you been in such a panic for the last day and a half? I thought they would hurt you, Lige, for heaven's sake. Why do you act as though you don't understand? I've explained it to you. He's like, you explained that y'all get together for punch and talk shit.
Yeah.
Well, they used to talk about someday when they'd put pressure on the government, we were supposed to get organized, and then afterward, there would be huge strikes and work stoppages. We could force the government to ban all robots and make the spacers go back to where they came from. Then they said, now we'll see action, and we're going to make an example of them and put a stop to the robot invasion right now. Right there in personal, they said it, not knowing it was you they were talking about, but I knew right away.
Yeah.
It was nothing. It was just talk. You could see for yourself that nothing has happened. I was so scared. And I thought, I'm part of it. If there's going to be killing and destruction, you might be killed. And Bentley, and somehow it would all be my fault for taking part in it. And I ought to be sent to jail.
Like all little revolutionary clubs. So it can turn dark fast.
We finally get to... Did any strangers come to the meetings? You know, any big shots from central headquarters? And she goes, how could I remember? I mean, then she stopped and seemed to consider and said, did you say one of them was a yeast farmer?
Yeah.
Because they told her about two of the suspects, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Daneel told her the physical measurements, length, and kind of like a description of the suspects that had followed them.
Yeah. And then that's where Daneel confirms, yeah, it's Francis Glussar. Employee at New York East.
I just love her Well, you know,
yeah,
once a man was
ranting.
making a speech, and I happened to be sitting in the first row, and I kept getting a whiff, just a whiff, really, of raw yeast smell.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The only reason that I remember is that I had an upset stomach that day, and the smell kept making me sick. I had to stand up and move to the back, and of course I couldn't explain what was wrong. It was so embarrassing. Maybe that's the man you're speaking of. After all, when you work with the yeast all the time, the odor gets stuck to your clothes. And I could just picture Bailey just being like...
I mean, this is why you gotta let her rant and get it all out. Like, holy crap. She just cracked the case open because she remembers everything and keeps talking about what seems like tangents and weird details.
I just love, he's sitting there. There's a line where it goes, a sense of detachment was creeping over him, a numbing of emotions.
Dissociation, numbing. He's astral projecting.
It's hilarious.
There's this line over here, I guess, which would be important. He has to explain to Daneel more. Bailey said, because he's asking... Well, I'll just read the whole thing you got here. Could you then explain why the word Jezebel, the mere sound of a name, should lead her to abandon previous convictions and assume a new set? The motivation seems obscure. Bailey said it's hard to explain. Jezebel's a rare name. It belonged to a woman with a very bad reputation. My wife treasured that fact. It gave her a vicarious feeling of wickedness and compensated for a life that was uniformly proper. Why should a law-abiding woman want to feel wicked? Bailey almost smiled. Women are women, Daneel.
Bro, this is after the fact. Like, they've basically told her, like, go home.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna be okay. And Daneel's just asking Bailey this stuff. And he goes, besides that, the Bible has a great influence on human thought and emotion. And Daneel goes, what is the Bible?
Yeah. And he didn't know, but that's how we learned that the Spacers lived under a thoroughly mechanistic personal philosophy. And our Daneel could only know what the Spacers knew, no more.
Yeah.
And so, but my point, it's kind of funny, of course he goes on the women are women point, but everybody that lives under here, there's got to be such a weird appeal, a subverted want to join a group.
It'd be bad.
Yeah. When everything's perfect little.
There's like a line
slush food.
Somewhere else where she admits, like, where it's like admitted that she was such a like goody two shoes, basically, that like the idea of relating to Jezebel was like, ooh.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah, of course, yeah.
Such a bad girl.
Mm-hmm. This is gonna be important. So he asks them more about the Bible, and this is where we get that it's a sacred book of about half of Earth's population. And he says, I mean that that it is highly regarded. Various portions of it, when properly interpreted, contain a code of behavior which many men consider best suited to the ultimate happiness of mankind. Our Daneel seemed to consider that. Is this code incorporated into your laws? I'm afraid not. The code doesn't lend itself to legal enforcement. It must be obeyed spontaneously by each individual out of a longing to do so. It is a sense higher than any law can be. So it's great that it's a moral code. He's literally a robot. He runs off of actual code, but it's a moral code. But he's saying, but that's what's funny about it. It doesn't translate. He's talking more about the New Testament. But, New Testament explicitly. It's an intangible thing. It really have fun trying to codify moral lessons like that, because the robot's going to stick to like Leviticus. Like I want 100 and something actual laid out perfectly described laws.
We actually see Daneel because Bailey's like, shall I quote a portion of the Bible for you? Would you be curious to hear it? And Daneel says, please do. So he basically tells the story. You do a better job of this.
I got you. It's well, I just read how he put it here. He says, Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, and at dawn returned to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and preached to them. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought to him a woman caught in adultery. And when they had placed her before him, they said to him, Master, this woman was caught in adultery, in the very act. Now Moses in the law commanded us to stone such offenders. What do you say? So I would add, that's what I mean by, like, you could see the Old Testament is like literal laws. Follow them like a robot. She did the bad thing, then give her the exact punishment. They said this hoping to trap him, that they might have grounds for accusation against him, because he's going to go against the law. So Jesus stooped down and with his fingers wrote on the ground as though he had not heard them. But when they continued asking him, he stood up and said to them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. So it's the famous story of let he without sin cast the first stone.
Yeah.
And Daneel listened attentively. He said, what is adultery? That doesn't matter. It was a crime at the time. The accepted punishment was stoning. That's it. Or that is, stones were thrown at the guilty person until she was killed. And the woman was guilty? She was. Then why was she not stoned? Asks the robot. None of the accusers felt they could after Jesus' statement. The story is meant to show that there is something even higher than the justice which you have been filled with. There is a human impulse known as mercy, a human act known as forgiveness. I am not acquainted with those words, partner Elijah. I know, muttered Baley. I know. Because even they gave him, we had that whole speech with they gave him an extra code package, a download with justice. But then he still explains justice just means following the law. That's like the ultimate good to him. But that's still just being a robot. He can't
quite understand why.
Yeah, she should have been stoned.
Why would you not have stoned this woman?
Yeah. And it's funny for all the like simplistic atheist types. Like I know Asimov obviously was an atheist guy, but I was ranting at my wife, at you over here. That's what's funny. I just felt very vindicated because I'm like, I'm interested in all this religious stuff and all these cool stories and all these. There's some intangible. There's an emergent thing from these stories, but a lot of people interested in sci-fi and science in general think it's just a dumb waste of time.
To give y'all an
Asimov
idea
doesn't think it's a dumb waste of time.
Of when he decided to do this rant, he came into the room as I'm putting the baby to bed.
She was not having it. I was ranting into the void.
He was
it's like, literally dark and I gotta
whispering in the dark to me like, as I'm trying to put her to sleep.
It's really for the ending part, but it ties back to this conversation. Basically that we gotta get this intangible to get the robots to not think in such codified manner. And that's why I always use the term when talking about real people. I call them robots. When you're working with somebody and in any aspect, the person just goes, I can't. It's like, why can't you think outside the box? You're just following I say X and you reply Y. And, that's where you get the NPC meme. Like these people, are you really a person?
They have to follow, like they only have so many responses they can have.
Yeah.
And you can almost predict which one they're going to have.
Mm-hmm. And it's like there's no creative thinking on their end. And of course, it's purposely done in a lot of jobs just so they don't have to work. they've suspended this part of their brain, but our economy is often set up to create that. So we're making human robots while also making real, iron robots. The sci-fi. We're in sci-fi, but we're going the wrong way with sci-fi.
Sci-fi.
Yeah. So we're on chapter 15, Arrest of a Conspirator.
So there's a bunch of stuff on like
that's a Roman conspirator.
Uncle Boris
Conspirator.
and Bailey's life. It was his uncle and how he had a yeast farm and he had little treats. But the most important thing kind of leading up to the conspirator is when he gets to the plant, he's given what they call a rod. The rod was an inconspicuous thing that could be palmed in the hand. Its tip warmed gently when lined up in the direction for which it was set, cooled quickly when turned away. The warmth increased as the final goal was approached.
Yeah, it's literally the hot and cold game as a kid, but it allows you to navigate. Yeah, and that's going to be important.
There's like mention of a throat phone, but
I mean, we don't need that. You're right.
There's just like little technological bits that are cool, but that's like the most important part because that'll play in later.
Yeah.
They talk about how like kids from the city specifically, like they are really attuned. They know how to use these things because there's a lot of games, like you said, hot, cold. So it's really second nature to use these things.
Yeah.
Like people generally, at least people within the city that we're from, New York, don't generally get lost because you're so used to using these things.
Yeah. You want to just jump to meeting Mr. Clusar?
So basically, we're here to arrest Clusar. We're taken to him, or we get a rod to go to him. They're basically like, Clusar, we need to speak it to you.
Yeah, they've developed an accent while being around too much radioactivity down.
This is a yeast farm, so everything smells like yeast.
Yeah.
And Clusar's like, we'll go talk in the balance room. I don't know. I can't do any accent, honestly.
And Clusar says, "Les socles bleus in the balance room."
So they go into this, like, the balance room is like an immaculately clean room. It's just a big white, and I'm pretty sure, does Daneel, like, ask if they can be heard? I don't remember. Because that's
his favorite question.
That's his favorite question. Like, can we be overheard?
Are they listening in on us, man?
So they're in the balance room, and you may now finally do your Clusar rent.
I'll just read you some Clusar points. So he's pissed at the robot. He literally over here says, "You mean he's a damn robot?"
Because do
that whole reveal.
You're gonna have to paint that a little bit. Okay. So, basically Bailey's like questioning him, and he's like, "So I have a feeling that you're medievalist," and he's like, "No, I'm not." And so, just in a very childish manner.
Oh yeah, you don't have this highlighted, but when he starts getting, go ahead.
Basically.
He wants him to shake his hand.
No, not even. He's like, "Can you go put your arm around him?" Like he wants him to like.
Yeah, be chummy with Daneel.
Like basically.
He tells Clusar to put his arm around Daneel.
Clusar?
Yeah, he tells him to hug him, but then he says, which is funny. How did he know? I forget how he actually knew that he was a robot. Did he just say it? No, he didn't say it until later.
He just goes, "Keep the damn thing away from me." Yeah,
but they have a whole thing right before that where.
Yeah, that's...
Where he reaches out his hand. He doesn't want to shake his hand. Don't touch me. All this stuff. So clearly the guy's...
Yeah, keep that thing off me.
More mad at this robot than anyone else we've seen so far in this story.
That's no way to speak. That man's my partner.
Yeah.
You mean he's a damn robot.
Funny detail too. This is before Miranda rights. Because he asked for a lawyer... There's no like reading of you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be like there's none of that. But he does know that he wants a lawyer. But then Bailey keeps pushing him. So what do the medievalists want? And it just says we want to get back to the soil. And how's it going to feed 8 billion people? Which is hilarious. We're doing that now, basically. So I'll get to some of your quotes that you've highlighted here. I see a bunch of good ones. Clusar squirmed. Alright, so I'm ruined too, but the children aren't ruined yet. There are babies being born continuously. Get them out, for God's sake. Let them have space and open air and sun. If we've got to, we'll cut our population little by little too. Backwards, in other words, to an impossible past. Because Bailey, and that's funny, Bailey did not really know why he was arguing, except for a strange fever that was burning in his own veins. Back to the seed. So this is Baley talking. Back to the seed, to the egg, to the womb. Why not move forward? Don't cut Earth's population. Use it for export. Go back to the soil, but go back to the soil of other planets. Colonize. So, like, to meet the medievalists halfway, like, you're right. We shouldn't be living in caves of steel, in this weird stagnant, and they are going backwards. Like we said, they're not actually even maintaining. There's always an illusion here. Nothing ever is stable. It's always either degenerating or advancing.
Yeah, like
any society, anything, even every organism.
If in Foundation we find out that the spacers, and like if the spacers are admitting that their biggest fear is that they're already starting to slow down, and like they're starting to have population issues and they're going backward, then literally by hearing them say that like we should go back to having fresh air, we'll even cut back our population little by little. With like those are the same things that the spacers are doing.
Yeah.
So like we're all going to end up extinct. Like if the spacers fear is that we're going to be extinct in space, and Earth is having the same thought process through this medievalist group, we're just going to die as a species.
Yeah, because Falstov, I always forget to pronounce it. Falstov, the spacer scientist, is saying that's what they're worried about. So that's what's so cool. Like they're just not communicating with each other. Another realistic issue. Because
they got into war and they don't like each other.
Yeah, they're at fear and anger from past war issues.
They're like siblings that don't want to talk.
At the core, they are actually fighting the same issue in a way. And
I mean, coincidentally, to my point earlier in the podcast, Clusar laughed harshly and make more outer worlds, more spacers.
Yeah.
So like it's this idea.
We aren't them. We're different people. Like stop making us.
We don't colonize like these.
Yeah,
the spacers.
But they don't want it, so they throw out
shit.
the whole thing. They can't. You see this with Democrat, Republican stuff. Like anything on that side that you've decided is that side of the argument, you just can't bring over because that's what they say over there. Like I'm gonna sound like one of them. I don't want to be one of them, and so let me just keep reading your stuff here. Those qualities were carried to an unhealthy extreme.
Oh, cause
No, we won't. The outer worlds were settled by Earthmen who came from a planet that did not have cities, by Earthmen who were individualists and materialists. Those qualities were carried to an unhealthy extreme. We can now colonize out of a society that has built cooperation, if anything, too far. Now environment and tradition can interact to form a new middle way, distinct from either old Earth or the outer worlds, something newer and better. He was parroting Dr. Falstov, he knew, but it was coming out as though he himself had been thinking of it for years. Clusar said, and I do think he's been thinking about it for years. The whole point of Baley's growth here is that everybody knows that this is not sustainable. Oh, that's what I wanted to add. This society is going backward. It's a dying society, the Cave of Steel. It's not stable. We know that from the lines about the imports, that they used to be able to last a whole week, and then only a day, and now they don't even last an hour.
Even with these rations and stuff, like, and then we have...
Yeah, the food supply is going down in this same story, like in this book.
Tobacco's going down.
This is only over a couple days, right? I forget how many days this takes place over.
In general, rations have been going down.
Yeah, like, I'm saying even over those couple days, we already see stuff being throttled down.
Well, we see when they go to the kitchen that's not his normal kitchen, they're like, oh, you don't get free selection. Like we're tight this week, so you're just getting what you get. Yeah.
Clusar said, nuts. Colonize desert worlds with a world of our own at our fingertips? What fools would try? Many, and they wouldn't be fools. There'd be robots to help. No, said Clusar fiercely, never. No robots. Why not? For the love of heaven, I don't like them either, but I'm not going to knife myself for the sake of prejudice. Why are we afraid?
What are we afraid of?
What are we afraid of in robots? I love that.
They seem to be better than us, only they're not. That's the damn irony of it.
Yeah, so another thing of them, he's playing, the whole theme here is not trying to understand the other side. If people hung around the robots or really understood how they work, and you see this with AI right now, the people that are most blown away by it aren't working with it. I can't say that general, I guess. A lot of the people with the biggest fearmongers or the biggest, AI is going to be our next god. I guess they are highly involved in the tech side. But people that I know that work in it, and even us when we play with the ChatGPT stuff, the more you actually work with it to solve real world practical things, there's no brain in there. There's no
I mean, it doesn't matter how many
it's so unimpressive is the general way to put it. And but it could be one day.
And there's so many flaws. It's very like I saw a funny meme where it was like there's tech enthusiasts and then there's IT people. The tech enthusiast has their entire house a smart house, and the IT person has their entire house dumb.
No, the meme has like, and the IT guy has an axe next to the printer just in case it gets out of hand.
Yeah,
like, just in case it goes crazy.
Because the IT guy, once you kind of know, like that the flaws to it, and how easy it is to take over, or how like ridiculous it is if you like lose control of it.
Yeah. But I mean by like the boomers, the people that are blown away by ChatGPT and look at all this crazy stuff it can do, and it's like try and actually sit with that for a little bit. Have it try and give you, even with the art stuff, it can make incredible art, when you try and make it a specific thing, it can't do it. It's incredible
how many fingers it gives you.
Yeah, exactly. So it just falls. But you would know that if you just interacted with it. Maybe you wouldn't be so scared of this AI takeover if you didn't. But to the people worried about it, it will mess up your jobs, and maybe even the perception of it being superior destroy society. It doesn't have to actually be superior. If people are reacting, like however people react is the more important reality. And in our story here, the medievalists are so afraid of this thing that they don't even really understand. But Asimov and through Baley thinks, but it's inevitable. It's here. It's going to keep progressing. We have to find a way to exist with it. And it's actually going to help us with our current job of needing to use our population surplus. The fact that we're humans, we want to reproduce. It also seems
silly to just totally cast them out when, like...
They're just a tool. You don't cast out any other tool.
Exactly. Like, we use computers, and, like, you're going to be on an uninhabited world. Mm-hmm. Or even, in some cases, uninhabitable.
A dangerous
making
world.
it inhabitable.
One of the first things to talk about with the short stories of the robot stories, which we didn't read all of them, but we both read some of them. Mm-hmm. Different ones. The one that stuck in my head was the one he's in some place humans literally can't operate there. Yeah. It's too radioactive, or I think it was just hot.
For whatever, like it might not be enough oxygen. It might be too whatever.
It's a
might
force
be too cold.
multiplier.
It might be
like most tools.
Like there really might be cases where you need someone to do something, and it would be nice if it could be a robot and not a person. And
Asimov is even doing this in his real life here to not be a full blown communist in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and to not act like there's no valid critiques of any of our civilizations. Every civilization is going to have critiques, because like he says, but now we're like too commie like we figured out cooperation and like yay civics, like you can even say nationalists in a weird way. Each little, because we don't understand, is there a world government yet on Earth? It's still vague. I think intentionally left vague. They think of it more as New York,
they haven't
larger metropolitan area.
Really said there's like a galactic standard.
Yeah.
It's like...
Oh, no, I did say English is the standard across.
I mean, they say English is spoken everywhere, but they don't call it galactic standard yet.
And it's not like the world government explicitly.
Yeah.
But the point is, like, all right, whether you have full-blown, like, nationalism or communism...
And they still went to, like, when the spacers came down, they still went to different countries, so... I would say there probably isn't, like,
that's a true point.
World government. There's probably, like, a world... Like a UN.
Like now, like there's countries that we know basically influence everything else. My point is, he's saying, but look, we've gotten this
for our conspiracy pod.
Yeah, really. He's that the ones that were brave enough and strike it out on their own, individualists going out in the world, and I love that it even says materialists. Like they think, like that's a crazy line. I think most people would miss. It says by Earthmen who are individualists and materialists. And the guy who's saying this has an interest in the Bible, while not being a Christian, because he doesn't say I'm a Christian here. He says that half the world, still likes the Bible. But at least that means that he has some sort of metaphysical interest, where he's saying the spacers. Asimov is critiquing here these hyper-rationalist atheist types. Like, I don't know how people don't see that. I don't really. It's kind of funny. I don't ever see that pointed out. But he's literally making a point of saying that that's the better future, not the civies and all of the... Asimov's clearly critiquing bureaucracy in this book and like commie kind of flaws, but also that there's an issue with pure rational capitalism would just replace workers with robots.
Yeah.
So like, hey man, we gotta make the little kid Vince. Let's not just have him not have a job and be useless. And hey, human, you can go be homeless and useless.
He's critiquing that, like, so we have this technological advancement and these kind of like dumber things. Not dumber, but like some of these jobs could be done by robots, and then we could be using people to do more important things.
Yeah.
Like,
that was always the promise of
Sammy
stuff.
R replaced this kid who was just going to be running messages for the commissioner, and when he could be helping to colonize a different planet or like move the species forward in a different way. Like,
something that humans can do better than robots. Like, find where that is.
Wasn't there like a philosopher or something that used to basically say, like, if...
Yeah, your husband, I think.
No, there's like I mean, yes, but
Go on,
there's like a story where the people basically lived in luxury.
Actual ancient Greece, built on slave labor.
Possibly. I don't know. I've lost the thought. It's okay.
It's I mean, Nietzsche beyond good and evil, but also genealogy of morals. And like, you realize all this philosophizing was done because they had slaves and like gave them the ability to do this. But so maybe the robots could be our slaves, and it's not so messed up because. Let me literally, the next part's going to help with that point. So help me bring it back to that point. Because he said they seem to be, Baley says they seem to be better than us, only they're not. That's the damn irony of it. And he goes on, we can never build a robot that will be as good as a human being in anything that counts. Because that's Baley saying this, right? Right here?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, it has to be. Because the quotes parts is funny. We can never build a robot that'll ever be as good as a human being in anything that counts, let alone better. We can't create a robot with a sense of beauty or a sense of ethics or a sense of religion. There's no way we can raise a positronic brain 1 inch above the level of perfect materialism. We can't, damn it, we can't. Not as long as we don't understand what makes our own brains tick. Not as long as things exist that science can't measure. What is beauty, or goodness, or art, or love, or God? We're forever teetering on the brink of the unknowable and trying to understand what can't be understood, and that's what makes us men. A robot's brain must be finite or it can't be built. It must be calculated to the final decimal place so that it has an end. Jehoshaphat, what are you afraid of? A robot can look like Daneel, he can look like a god, and be no more human than a lump of wood is. Can't you see that?
Yeah, so that's Baley, because
that's my favorite couple paragraphs.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Kusara tried to interrupt several times and failed against Baley's furious torrent. Because he's basically like...
Yeah, this just pours out of him.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit, as I say, was getting to him. I say that without a orthodox Christian worldview on that, but like I think that's what Asimov is getting at here, and Baley too. Like, we should be wondering about God's nature. That isn't... I refuse to let that be only in the realm of religious people. Like, scientific thinking people should be in that mode. And I love that he ties it to all those things are what it means to be human. If you want to just live think that there's nothing more to life than matter, then congrats, you're going to be replaced by the pure matter that is the robot brain. And another great thing that you get from studying religion is the concept that humans never create anything. We transform things. Actually, Carl Sagan, around this time, I think it was more in the 70s, but famous quote from the original Cosmos series, in order to create an apple pie, one must first create the universe. So humans transform things.
Apple pie.
Yeah. But that's saying
that's a lot. That's quite the recipe.
We are always tied to that mystery. And that's what makes us humans.
Sorry.
No, I like
I'm just picturing like on Pinterest, like apple pie recipe.
Yeah, first
and, like,
create universe.
The first thing that I did when I was
I'm going to do that now, just so baby girl grows up in a household that sees that is how the world actually works.
I decided to create the universe.
Because these AI tech weirdos that don't have any sense of a metaphysical realm, they have no interest in religion. I shouldn't even say religion, in spiritual matters, in matters of the soul. They don't think it's real. And then is it any wonder that they're so impressed by AI. And I love that he says it can look, the robot like Daneel, he can look like a god. You literally have people saying AI is going to be the next god, and then I go on ChatGPT and it can't tell me anything useful. Like it's made for quick descriptions. Like it's made for cutting minutes off of the pointless tasks in your day.
I have a corporate job on the side.
Yeah,
and I use it to write things and have it translated. Do you remember those memes where it was like, how do you say this in profession, like in corporate?
Translate it to corporate for me.
That's basically what I have used him for.
Yeah. But no, and even the fear with some of the artists, like we do on another YouTube channel, Meta Nerds Lore, and you can't have it make art that relates to what I'm describing. And
even so, like I have done side quests, and one of my side quests was played with a bunch of a kids channel, like specific. So I was pregnant, and we knew we were gonna have a baby, and I really wanted to have a place where I knew the stories were like kid friendly. And it was about like growing and support, and like it didn't have extracurriculars attached. It really just is like kid stories. So I had ChatGPT kind of like help me write a bunch because I was like pregnant and I just wasn't feeling like writing.
This is during the boom. This is literally when ChatGPT was.
And I thought it would be fun.
So everybody was messing with it.
I had a couple different AIs. I was working with different AIs. I had one AI making art, ChatGPT writing the story because at the time it couldn't create art. And like the stories all have the same, like,
yeah, it's formulaic.
It's formulaic, and it's always the same thing. Like if it was a story about like I have one that's about a golden retriever that it has a little brother, and it wants to play during the little brother's nap time, and it doesn't know, like it keeps waking the little brother up to play with it. So like it starts off with like there was a very cute golden retriever. He had a fluffy tail, and like another story has like a panda, and it's like there was a very.
You could say it only
panda,
learned that formula from studying humans, so the humans must do the formula.
And if you look at the formula, it reminds me so much of like what we call here the FCAT Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
Where it was like just you have to start with like the introduction, the body, which is usually like your 3 reasons or like. And then the end.
My point is, like you're saying, anybody that's actually tried to make a YouTube channel using AI stuff or help it make anything creative, and I think the art, I think everybody would say like you're crazy because I've seen AI art and AI video, and it's so impressive. And it's so impressive because if you just keep it vague, like if I'm trying to describe a character from a book, any of these characters, and I put in all the details. Hard. It won't look like that. It'll look so realistic and well made of a thing I didn't describe. So it's not useful to me. And
like even at the time when I was doing this, which was like last year,
while these tech people claim that it's a god, like it's literally so impressive. I'm like, you guys are just pump and dump scam artists. I'm sorry to put it that way. But a lot of these tech bros are just lying. They can't not know that it's this bad.
But it's also like they're just not honest too. We're like, okay, I get it. I get that you were able to get this thing to give you that picture. How much time did you put into that? Like, don't bullshit me. It took you forever to finally come up with the correct prompt. Yeah. Using the correct AI generator, using the correct amount, like the correct settings, because there's like a bunch of settings.
Because now we've talked about there's a separate job field that's going to come out in a weird way that is going to be people that know how to massage the AI system to get a more accurate photo, for example. Yeah. So that's going to be the skill set instead of just painting it yourself. But and to your point, it's like, so then maybe the robot shouldn't do that though. Maybe that's still a human thing. And, the robot should do something else. But Asimov's great understanding of history and religious stuff and creativity with the sci-fi stuff. It's like, you could look at ancient Greece. What a great leap forward in thinking and all this beautiful stuff that came out of that. But that's based on slavery. Look at America and all this great stuff we did and all that, like technological leap forward and all that. But we did, similar things. And like not just slavery, but the way we treated other humans. So what if you had a pro-human, government or mindset philosophy for people that wasn't so tech, weary? Like you don't hate and destroy robots, but it also isn't so anti-human like a lot of these tech guys are, because it's such an easy step. I don't know why this has to happen. It's frustrating as a orthodox locked-in guy to any faith. It's like, but to the religious people's credit, atheist types should struggle with this. Why is there such a quick move to hate humans from the atheist types? So, yeah, we're just scum of the earth, man. Like, humans are just a cancer on earth. Like, humans are bad. It's like, some of my favorite religious people, I'm like, I don't know if that's super biblical, but they sound like some of these Asimov guys. These are the inherit the stars, like God made us. We're supposed to go take over everything. Warhammer has funny quotes people always post online. But like the idea, it is pro-humanity. When you think God made you in your image, that's the Warhammer one I see a lot. Like the Xenos weren't made in God's image though, so they get destroyed. Yeah. But he's not lovey-dovey. And Baley here, at least, which I'm not sure where Asimov thinks on this, because later I think the robots are acting like they do have a metaphysical sense of self. Because what we're describing in the Foundation series, it's like, a robot can do all of my exact actions, but you don't know that there's a metaphysical thing experiencing the color red. There's no qualia, it's called in philosophy. There's no... Does it enjoy food when it eats it? Or does it just say, yummy, I enjoyed the food? It can say that, but it doesn't...
I honestly feel like I need to finish the third book of this series.
Of the robot series? Yeah, the whole robot series.
Because I feel like there has to be something hidden here. And then I have a feeling that when we finish the third one, we're going to want to read the Prelude and the Forward of Foundation, which are the only 2 books we're missing of the series. Yeah. And then y'all are gonna get super philosophy tunked. Then we may or may not fully understand where Asimov is.
We'll have a whole pod on just
I feel like
reviewing his...
With book 5, not only did it feel like a wash, but I feel like something is missing. Like I'm missing a piece of the puzzle. And by learning about Daneel and seeing kind of like how he first exposed us to Daneel and our first experiences with Daneel, and then knowing that we're probably going to be following him in the next 2 books...
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm curious to see what, like, did Asimov...
You knew that already? I don't know if I told you that explicitly or...
I have a feeling
because it was a big shock to me. I was like, oh my god, it's Daneel.
Just because Daneel mentioned so many things that I feel like I was supposed to already know, like experiences that other readers might know.
Oh yeah, in Foundation 5, yeah. He mentions...
So I'm figuring...
Okay, yeah.
That we have to be following him in the series.
Yeah.
So... I almost feel like, I don't know, I get that he wrote the books 4 and 5 after the trilogy was written and probably after this trilogy was written. So maybe he felt like it made sense to tie all these together. Like, because his universe, maybe at the time Asimov people knew the universe was all tied together. But as someone who hadn't read this series, it felt so out of nowhere to have Daneel come in. So I almost feel like there has to be a clue in here. And if there isn't, I'm going to rant about it.
Yeah, you saw the people...
Possibly angrily.
I know. It's still possible that the last book was just emotional. A dud. But...
I know, but let's see. But
people have horrible takes. Like I said, nobody's picking up on this fact that Asimov is playing with... like I said, you don't have to become religious to think about... the nature of qualia, of emergent phenomena of consciousness.
The Treves in me says.
Yeah, you got an intuition?
Something is telling me.
We'll continue with our plot here.
That we need to see Daneel's character. And
we will.
We need to read the Prelude and the Forward.
We will. And then we get to do a mega
will click.
Philosophy rant.
And maybe even after just book 6, something will begin to click, and book 7 will just save the entire thing.
You are not Clusar. You are not my yeast farmer man, who is both partially right.
Basically, Baley is ranting at Clusard.
I'll just say how it ends here. I mean,
Daneel went out to talk to the commissioner.
Yeah,
because he's basically trying to get in contact with the commissioner to let them know.
Because no one knows who the commissioner was all this time. Yeah. But they got a guy under arrest who seems super pissed at robots. Is probably him.
But he's like, I'm having a hard time getting through to him because a body's been found. And he's like, what? And he goes, it was the errand boy, our Sammy.
Our Sammy is dead. But even Baley says, what, he blew a fuse? Like, who cares?
It's what? Yeah. It's murder.
It is murder most high. And a commissioner believes him to be deliberately deactivated. Or the phrase murdered. So, Chapter 16, questions concerning a motive. We can go through this quickly, but there's still some cool nuggets.
There's cool nuggets, like Daneel's going, while they're sitting in the car, Baley has Daneel sit in the back with Clusar. As they walk to the car, Clusar decides to slap Daneel, and Daneel, like, backs up so that he doesn't necessarily get the full brunt of the slap. Mm-hmm. And you could be thinking, like, oh, that's nice of him. And he's like, sir, if I had not done that, you would have very surely have hurt your hand.
Yeah.
That was a dangerous action, Francis. Had I not moved backward, you might easily have damaged your hand. As it is, I regret that I must have caused you pain.
Yeah. And I just love he's being arrested by a robot. This guy he didn't even want to be touched by a robot.
He, like, talks to so he's sitting in the back seat with Clusar. Clusar's basically, like, I'm picturing him, like, trying to sit as close to the window as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, he's sitting in the back.
Basically brings up immigration. And Clusar goes, you two, the policeman talked about immigration. He's got good robot training. Maybe he is a robot.
Yeah. I hate to go on a million rants. There is that we know that there's psychic powers eventually developed in the future, we think.
But it's a different robot.
Yeah, but is that a possible hint at Asimov saying, yeah, I mean, even that line from Baley, he said, where was it? You know, that it was as if Fastoff, he knew that he sounded like Fastoff, but it sounded like it was him saying it.
We end up finding out why all of this later. Do you remember?
No, you can say
you don't remember? Okay. So, basically...
No, why Baley seems so...
Yeah, we get the answer to that for sure.
Okay. Maybe
great memory.
I know, right? I'm blanking here. Ranting about...
We totally, because... So, we're driving back, and it's fine. And, basically, we find out that doctor, the robotics doctor, Dr. Garrel, he was asked to come in, and we actually find him because we end up in what's called the photographic supply room, and that's where the body's been found. Coincidentally by Dr. Garrel. He goes, yes, and it was in the prone figure of what was obviously a robot. It was clear to me after a brief examination that he was irreversibly deactivated, dead you might say, nor was it very difficult to determine the cause of deactivation. The robot's partly clenched right fist, said Dr. Garrel, was a shiny ovoid about 2 inches long and half an inch wide with a mica window at one end. The first was in contact with his skull as though the robot's last act had been to touch his head. The thing he was holding was an alpha sprayer. You know what they are, I suppose. So it's like those sprayers are only found in power plants.
What page is that?
That was page 216 and 217.
Oh, because you got your notes on the side.
Yeah, Dr. Garrel had said, unfortunately, my guide rod was somewhat off, or had perhaps, in my over-anxiety, I misjudged its temperature. Either case, I took a wrong turn and found myself in a small room where the robot was prone. Yeah,
and that's who?
That's the robotics. So,
yeah.
He had been called back.
Yeah,
the robotics expert that Baley had originally. He had been called back.
There's a quote here that I wanted to not pass over to, where it says, they're talking about his theory on the robots, and he's, you really want to know? I told him robots were simply machines. That was the gospel according to Saint Garagel. There were any number of gospels, I think. What do you think he means by that? Like that there's tons of philosophies of robot mind, or?
Wait.
That's on 215.
215? Where? Yeah. Read it.
It's highlighted. You really want to know? I told him that robots were simply machines. That was the gospel according to Saint Garagel.
I mean, all he's saying is that robots are just machines.
But that was the gospel to this guy, to Garagel. But there's any number of gospels, I think. Like, there's interpretations on if robots really are just machines. Maybe some people, maybe some researchers out there think that they do have a theory of, they have qualia, they have a subjective sense of experience. I don't know if that's what he meant, but he just throws it in there randomly, that one little thing in the middle of this back and forth. I'm like,
no, I think
hey, that's you admitting that the
I admit, I think it was just a way of speaking. I'm trying to like find it because I think I'm still not. You said it's
on the left there.
left.
Little paragraph. Same paragraph, right up.
You-
Right there.
You really want to know? I told him robots are simply machines. That was the gospel according to Saint Garrigo. There are a number of gospels, I think. Oh, no.
Sorry, baby.
Wait.
Break real quick. All right, we're back. I thought about it a little more while you're taking care of the baby. The line on the any number of gospels, I don't know if he means the actual ones because their understanding of the Bible is, I don't know. Or but he calls him Saint Garrigo, so I think he's meaning these are the views from these experts, from these eyewitnesses, like the gospels, but on robots. So, who knows? But Sammy is dead. Our Sammy, our office assistant, has been killed.
It isn't murder, said the commissioner. It's property damage. Let's keep our legal terms straight.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it was done inside the department.
Yeah. That's what's
so scandalous.
Mm-hmm.
So, the commissioner's like, oh, sorry. So, the commissioner's like, oh, it has to have been that Vincent Barrett. He was here today, you know?
Yeah.
And basically, Bailey's like, no, it couldn't have been him because we saw him leave the building at 1400 and we heard our Sammy alive at 1430 when he called to tell us that Jesse was here.
Mm.
When you spoke to him at 1430, what did he say? And he's like, I don't remember. Because basically, Bailey's told Daneel, like, let me lead the conversation so that we could try to keep Jesse out of it because I don't want people knowing she was a conspirator.
Yeah.
It looks bad.
Yeah.
And so the commissioner's like, So Jessie was in today, I noticed. I mean, we were checking all the visitors and I just happened to see her name. He's like, she was here. What for? Personal family matters.
Yeah.
She'll have to be questioned as a pure formality. I understand police routine, Commissioner. Incidentally, what about the alpha sprayer itself? Has it been traced? Oh yes, it came from one of the power plants.
And this thing releases radiation. Come on, kids. We're
How
getting
do
cat
they account
attacked.
for having lost it?
I just like how, but to compliment his writing, that it was reference to like remember Daneel was scared of the lines earlier when they were doing the running thing through the city, that he's actually more susceptible to radiation than humans are. So this is how Sammy got
this is
whacked.
definitely circling back to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did they claim, or like, how did they lose track of the alpha sprayer? And he goes, they don't. They have no idea. May I give my routine statements later, Commissioner? The fact is, I haven't eaten yet, Bailey said. And the commissioner's like, what? Yeah, that's fine. We can do that in a little bit. And so the commissioner's basically like, it's motive we need.
Yeah.
And so Bailey's like, wait a minute. What power plant did the alpha sprayer come from, Commissioner? The Williamsburg power plant. Why? Nothing. Don't worry about it.
Because he's getting, and we can get to the point of that, is that he's getting framed. Bailey realizes that somebody's making it look like it's clearly Bailey who's the murderer.
Yeah, like it's being deliberately...
Because it was stolen from where they just came from.
In order to throw suspicion on him. It was the power plant that they cut through when they got followed by...
Yeah, not the East plant, but earlier in the...
Yeah, when they left that dinner and they were followed by medievalists.
Mm-hmm.
That's the power plant that they cut through to basically lose them.
Where Daneel had mentioned that, it's dangerous. So in a way, you even got like, so Bailey knew that it was dangerous to robots and a way to kill them.
So that would be the opportunity where he would have gotten a hold of it. And people know and heard that the robot, Sammy, was talking to his wife, who was in distress. Like we told you, she was literally in tears.
Yeah.
And so people have to have seen her and maybe even overheard some of what she was saying if she was talking crazy like she was when she walked in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be very easy to think that Bailey would want to kill Sammy in order to shut him up and not just save face, but like keep people from knowing that his wife is a conspirator.
Yeah. You think this relates to his dream any? Like, because he's killing her by pushing her into the radiation chamber thing.
Yeah, but I think his dream was more he felt
losing her, the distance.
Like losing her. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a couple things. Like, I think his dream could be his realization, even though he didn't want to admit it and was trying all these roundabout ways to do stuff. Basically, like, I think he knew deep down in that moment that something was going on with her. She was connected to the case, and that for whatever reason he had pushed her to make a decision
that put her into, pushed her into this danger.
And he always knew deep down, like, he hated that he had killed the name Jezebel for her, and that argument was, like, huge for them. I don't think he knew that argument was the thing. Yeah, but somewhere, but something in his subconscious was like, something we did has pushed her, and she's now in the phrase of this, and it's kind of our fault.
So random. But whenever we want to move on the robot series, I do think we should read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep with the Blade Runner universe, because it's funny. I'm like, to summarize what I was trying to rant about before, I was like, yeah, do robots dream? Like, Bailey doesn't think they dream. Is a funny way to say it. Like, there's nothing going on beyond. That's something you experience.
Well, that actually ends up coming because,
that's written years. He asked after
in this
this,
book,
decades
he
after
asked
this.
Daniel if he dreamed or if he knows what dreams are, and Daniel's like, I know the definition.
Yeah.
And he's like, I mean, do you know what a nightmare is? And he's like,
yeah, that's true.
I know the definition. Forgot about that. Yeah. It's a bad dream.
Mm-hmm. And that's my point with, like, he can define it. He can even say he did it. Like a ChatGPT, I can ask it right now and it'll say that it does. Yeah. Sorry, I just triggered, like, that's the whole title of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. Like, is there anything going on? And we get our character having a whole little dream vision, which end up being true. Like you said, it's the way dreams are true sometimes. Metaphysical.
So, basically, we have this interesting conversation because, thanks, said Bailey, sadly, but your robot and your testimony will be invalid because Daniel's basically like, well, I mean, I was with you and I saw that you did not grab an alpha sprayer the whole time I was with you, so I'll just tell everyone that. And he's like, no one, you can't
remember,
be
robots
a witness.
Can't be witnesses.
The commissioner is your friend. He will listen. The commissioner has a job to keep, and he already is a bit uneasy about me. There's only one chance of saving myself from this very nasty situation. Yes? I asked myself, why am I being framed? Obviously to get rid of me, but why? Again, obviously, because I'm a danger to someone. I am doing my best to be dangerous to whoever killed Dr. Sarton in Spacetown. It would be this inner group that would know I had passed through the power plant. At least one of them might have followed me along the strips that far, even though you thought we had lost them. Bailey looked at R. Daniel's chiseled face with a sudden burning hope. Whatever the creature was, he was strong and faithful, animated but no selflessness.
Animated by no
selflessness.
Yeah.
What more could he ask of any friend? You will have to clear yourself of suspicion of the murder of R. Sammy through some means other than the investigation of the murder of my designer, Dr. Sarton. Our people at Spacetown, as a result of my information, have decided to bring the investigation to an end, as of today, and to begin plans for leaving Spacetown and Earth.
Yeah. Which, another writing point, like, he always ends, he has the greatest cliffhangers.
And you're like, you'll save me, right? You're with me. You're in this with me,
we're best
buddy,
friends
right?
to the end. You're the best friend a guy could have.
I am now leaving.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
Yeah. Actually, I just beamed into my head. I gotta go.
He's
He's literally Shepard Mesvik. I gotta go.
Basically. As he was sitting at his other table during this little lunch, he's been communicating with Spacetown. And basically they're like...
He's got a cell phone in his head.
We're done.
Mm-hmm. At a time that wasn't even thought of. My point, like, he ends these chapters on these such good cliffhangers.
They really
and maybe it's because he was trained in writing the serials in the newspaper and magazines and stuff like that. Like, they're all such perfect... He just saves these crazy little zingers, these little totally unrelated plot things.
The chapters all end so well.
At the end. But it's always out of nowhere, like, what? That had nothing to do with this chapter. Now the issue of them leaving.
Like a commercial break.
Mm-hmm.
Or like a break, like
you're
the next episode
Spacetown.
coming out next week or next month.
Yeah, what do you mean you're leaving Spacetown, basically? This is your quote about we're on chapter 17, conclusion of a project, and we get where Baley looks at his watch.
Yeah, because basically,
Yeah, he was asking Daneel all the time for the...
He reaches for his pipe again, by the way.
Yeah.
What's it all about, Daneel? Do you not understand? Is it not obvious?
Yes,
I do
crumbs
not
of tobacco.
understand. It's not obvious. We are here, said the robot, and by we, I mean our people at Spacetown, to break the shell surrounding Earth and force its people into new expansion and colonization.
Yeah. Pause for a sec. You didn't explain what was important. She was telling me earlier that she caught that Daneel is doing the time. He's reading the time out to him as a way to make him feel maybe inferior or use him as a tool, as a robot, not as a colleague. It's talking down to him. Tell me the time, boy, basically, is the tone. Yeah.
Well, I didn't even read the part because the chapter opens with him looking at his watch.
Yeah.
And there's a whole section of the book where he would purposely ask Daneel the time of the day because he felt like it was a menial task that he could do, but he just wanted Daneel to tell him the time, like it made him feel superior.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's looking, so you start to see that he goes right before this chapter. He also starts to look at his watch, but as we approach midnight, he keeps looking at his watch. Like in this section, Baley looked at his watch with something approaching detachment. It was 21:45. In 2.25 hours, it would be midnight.
Yeah. Yeah, and so sorry, and then tension for 2.5 days. Yeah, the whole story takes place over 2.5 days.
Yeah,
which is really cool. But anyways, yeah, you're going with everybody's leaving Spacetown.
Yeah. Basically, so he goes. If we're anxious to
Yeah, it must.
Where do I want to jump in on this? If you are anxious to exact punishment for the murder of Dr. Sarton, it was not that in doing so we expected to bring Dr. Sarton back to life, you understand. It was only that failure to do so would strengthen the position of our home planet politicians who are against the very idea of Spacetown. But now, said Baley with sudden violence, you say you're getting ready to go home of your own accord? Why? In heaven's name, why? The answer to the Sarton case is close. It must be close, or they wouldn't be trying so hard to blast me out of the investigation. I have a feeling I have all the facts I need to work out the answer. It must be in here somewhere. He knuckled his temple wildly. A sentence must bring it out. A word. So he said harshly, well, never mind that. Why are the spacers breaking off? The robot said, our project is concluded. We are satisfied that Earth will colonize. You switched to optimism then? I have for a long time now. For a long time now, we of Spacetown have tried to change Earth by changing its economy. We have tried to introduce our own sci-fi culture. Your planetary and various city governments cooperated with us because it was expedient to do so. Still, in 25 years, we have failed. The harder we tried, the stronger the opposing party of the medievalists grew. It was Dr. Sarton who first theorized that we must reverse our tactics. We must first find a segment of Earth's population that desired what we desired, or could be persuaded to do so. By encouraging and helping them, we could make the movement a native one rather than a foreign one. You yourself, Elijah, are an interesting experiment. We are glad your commissioner recommended you. From your psychic profile, we judged you to be a useful specimen. You are a practical man, Elijah. You do not moon romantically over Earth's past, despite your healthy interest in it, nor do you stubbornly embrace the city culture of Earth's present day. We felt that people such as yourself were the ones that could lead Earthmen to the stars once more. It was one reason Dr. Fastolf was anxious to see you yesterday morning. You refused to understand that the fanatical service of an ideal, even a mistaken ideal, could make a man do things quite beyond his ordinary capacity, as for instance crossing open country at night to destroy someone he considered an arch-enemy of his cause. We were not overly surprised, therefore you were stubborn enough and daring enough to attempt to prove the murder a fraud. In a way, it proved you were the man we wanted for our experiment.
Yeah.
The experiment of persuading you that colonization was the answer to Earth's problems. Well, I was persuaded, I'll give you that. Yes, under the influence of the appropriate drug.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Baley said chokingly, what was in the hypno sliver. Because I don't know if you remember us talking in the last, if you weren't here, when he found out that Daneel was actually truly a robot and
He
watched him have a Terminator moment opening his arm. He basically passed out, and they injected him with what was thought to be smelling salts, but ends up being, or like the equivalent of smelling salts, but it's actually a mild drug intended only to make your mind more receptive. So you would not believe anything that was foreign to the basic pattern of your thought. Basically, it like makes you receptive. If you already kind of are open to the idea, it's supposed to like super push it.
I think of it like there's certain things you know to do, whether it's a business plan or I don't know, something for the day or just your organization. You have all these, you're vague in what you want to do, and this just distills and makes it obvious that these are your beliefs and this is what.
It honestly reminds me of when Bliss would tell Trapeze.
That's what
like,
I was gonna get at.
Oh, are you? Okay,
the smoothing of the brain. No, I don't mean like that. Go ahead. I mean like.
Yeah, like she would.
I agree.
She would tell Trapeze, "Oh, I didn't implant this idea in you. You had this idea already, and I just basically kind of pushed you towards really liking that idea or going down that path more. Like I smoothed the path to that idea more as opposed to your brain going down all the other routes."
With her, I critiqued if you're sitting there saying you want to stick to your diet, but you also want to eat that cookie, how does she pick which one she wants to smooth? And let's say your impulse is to eat the cookie more in the short term. Yeah, I'm like really,
it depends what she wants.
What she's smoothing is really for her own will, and so you gotta like, oh my god, is Bailey's eye-opening experience even his own? They're claiming it's his own, but so did Bliss. They're claiming something less than Bliss, I would argue, in the sense of
they're like the beginning of what Bliss ends up having.
Yeah, of course, and I love that he's playing with this all the way back then, but does that hurt his character development in the sense of like, yeah, the spacers really were the bad guys all along, and maybe the medievalists were right? Like these guys, they didn't convince you. They're gonna claim all these high ideals like logic and don't you see that we're right, but also to make you see that we're right, we drugged you against your will. We didn't ask you, and we took advantage of you in the one moment. We pounced on you when you passed out.
I think it kind of depends on how this works, where like I get that he's gonna start playing with psychic stuff and then we end up with a lot of psychic stuff in Foundation. But even if they play with our minds, if there's anything in us that can either fight them off or can figure it out and get around it later, like in this case, he had this little breadcrumb in part of the conversation that they thought the doctor was hoping he'd be a fanatic and single-minded. Instead, he became rather distantly approving no more. Your practical nature stood in the way of anything further. Like, his actual nature, and he's in that moment, he writes there...
it made us realize that our only hope was the romantics.
Yeah, because Bailey felt incongruous.
Jesus Christ, you just jammed me though. I know how to pronounce it, and you just jam me all the time.
He was glad of his stubbornness and happy that he had disappointed them.
Incongruously.
You're welcome.
Yeah. He felt incongruous.
So,
oh
like,
my god.
So basically, like, I wonder if certain people are not necessarily immune, but a little more immune than others. Like, the drugs still somewhat worked. Like,
I just heard Watto in my head. God damn it.
What do you say?
Your Jedi mind tricks. I don't have a good Watto impersonation, but your Jedi mind tricks don't work on me.
So, like, Bailey's kind of somewhat where, like, yeah, you got the idea. Like, he was more open to the idea and he really ended up embracing it, but it's really because he ended up embracing it.
Yeah.
And even then, he's not like a fanatic, like...
Yeah, this book plays with religion so much, so I think it's an apt comparison where, like, sometimes you listen to people's testimonials and they say, some of them say straight up, angel came to them and told them. Some of them felt a crazy feeling and that's how they knew it was true. And others say, like almost weirdly not ashamed, but like, hey, I didn't feel any of that. God didn't talk to me. I'm just going off the evidence. At least they think so. And so they're providing some artificial movement there, but he's still not like caught up in his emotions, like head over heels with this belief. He really is still coldly looking at the data.
He has, but he's kind of like, like it must be the answer. Like it's really, he's rationalizing it as opposed to just being like, I don't know why, but this is the way. Yeah, he knows why. But everybody can post-talk rationalize it and, make it up after the fact, so... Yeah, but I admit... And he even says, like, it was like as if he was regurgitating what Dr. Fastov. Like, he knew he sounded like he was just parroting it. Yeah. I see where you're coming from. No, I know you see it. It's like... That's what I mean by I don't really know what Asimov means sometimes, or who's the good guys, who's the bad guys. And what my big critique of the Foundation was, is he being pro-dictatorship, pro-benevolent dictator. Like Travis or Daneel just make up the fate of humanity. They just decide things for us. What happened? I just was wondering what that was. Oh my god. I think the spacers have got to you. I just had an ADD. I know, I didn't want to say it. Like, what happened? Anyways, go ahead. Continue. So, basically, so Daneel tells him that the only hope the spacers have right now are the romantics and that are the medievalists, that have the potential to get Earth out to space. And he explains that when he cerebro-analyzed Francis Clusar in the car, he could tell that something had changed in him, and it must have been the conversation that Baley had with him, where he basically was telling him that instead of staying on Earth, that speech did spread out to the stars, and it did something, which is our first open. Yeah, but that is our first major Asimov critique here, Bucko. That means that what you said is true. That is just a flaw. That means that he should have been able to pick up that this guy, that or the other guy's actually the commissioner's the most cold-blooded sociopath ever. But it's just circular. Then okay, you couldn't pick up that. Yeah. In this brain scan, so this guy's brain scan was changed enough by a passionate speech, that he was able to tell that he's now more receptive to the idea of immigration to an uninhabitable planet. But Daneel sees nothing suspicious or any change or anything odd. I guess he wanted to see the change because it wasn't with him before. But he would be suspicious looking. But there would be something weird in the brain scan of the commissioner. So anyways, we'll ignore that. So the thing called medievalism shows a craving for pioneering. To be sure, the direction in which the craving turns itself is towards Earth itself, which is near and which has the precedent of a great past. But the vision of worlds beyond is a similar something, and the romantic can turn to it easily, just as Clusar felt the attraction as a result of one lecture from you. So you see, we as Spacetown have already succeeded without knowing it. We ourselves, rather than anything we tried to introduce, were the unsettling factor. If we leave Spacetown now, if we do not irritate the medievalist by our continued presence until he has committed himself to Earth, and only Earth, past redemption, if we leave behind a new obscure individuals or robots such as myself, who, together with synthetic Earthmen such as yourself, can establish the training schools for immigrants that I spoke of, the medievalists will eventually turn away from Earth. Yeah. I tell you all this to explain why it is necessary to do something that may hurt you. Baley thought bitterly, a robot must not hurt a human being unless he can think of a way to prove that it's good for human beings, ultimate good after all. Yep. Because basically, the hurting him would be that he's gonna leave and he can't help him solve the case. Yeah, but you gotta admit, it's a pretty cute buddy cop moment there, like, but you can't hurt me, Daniel. You're not supposed to be able to. But you're hurting me now, damn it. Don't leave. Then why not stay and find him, the killer? It is no longer necessary. Baley said bitterly, why not admit that the entire investigation was an excuse to study us under field conditions? You never gave a damn who killed Dr. Sarton. You mean the murderer might turn out to be a prominent medievalist, and right now the Spacers don't want to do anything to antagonize their new friends. Mm-hmm. It is not as I would say it, but there is truth in your words. Where's your justice circuit, Daneel? Is this justice? Yeah. There are degrees of justice, Elijah. When the lesser is incompatible with the greater, the lesser must give way.
There's also weird critiques here, like, so the cold, the more logical, the less passionate, and the clearer thinking folk are the ones that are going to stay on Earth in this scenario. Because like you said, we're going to use the passion. It's like a person that's like crazy for Jesus, and then they have some other moment, or what they think is super passionate moment. And now they're Muslim or something. And now they're the most passionate Muslim you've ever met. And so these people kind of bounce around. They're so much more passionate. Everybody else is, like he's saying, we're going to be able to manipulate the medievalists because they're so passionate that if you give them something meaningful, give them something that relates to them, they're going to run with that more than the cold, analytic, not that really that motivated normal person. But then aren't we kind of saying that they're kind of not naive but goofy? I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but like,
well, I guess that's why they would have
but I guess no, because we're thinking that Baley is both not passionate like the medievalist, not just going off of his emotions, but he's also not as lame-brained as the civvies.
A lot of the people that seem to have medievalist notions aren't necessarily, like, even the yeast guy
he's definitely
wasn't
not dumb.
like,
he was a high-level technician.
Yeah, so I think you'd be surprised. But you're saying
I don't mean
the
dumb,
people
but
that
I
would be
mean
left on Earth would be kind of dumb.
No,
like,
the people left on Earth in a weird way are the more like colder, rational, like what we normally think of as smarter types of people.
I mean, I'm seeing a range with the medievalists, and I think there's more.
Yeah, from his wife to the technician.
There was literally millions of medievalists, so.
Yeah, that's cool. Like that, it shows you how big it is.
Yeah, his wife was one.
I see myself as
that other cop guy.
Yeah, I'm not critiquing. If it sounds like I'm critiquing, I'm like, I think we are both what is classified philosophy, well, as romantics. Yeah. I know you critique my romance, but
we need to work on it.
But the romantic philosophy that means a technical thing.
I know.
It means above pure rational. It's why he includes the Old Testament laws are just rational, just follow them. The New Testament ideas of grace and forgiveness, it's super rational. It's beyond just reason. So that'll be the type of people that are going to be our next generation of spacers, hopefully.
In a funny way, you kind of do want that.
Yeah, I mean, I do.
I admit the romantics. A romantic is naive, but you almost need a little bit of naivete because, like, a sane person might not think that getting shot out into space to go to an uninhabitable world where you can have no help or support is a good idea.
Yeah.
Like
they have to like the idea of being a part of a larger project.
Yeah, and they have to romanticize.
Not just worry about their own little life.
They also have to romanticize and have this kind of semi-optimistic, like, yeah, we could do this, and it would be so awesome to be pioneering our own world.
I guess they're brave too.
Yeah,
they have to be kind of scared to go up into the open air and live in the woods.
Like that other guy was terrified to fly.
Yeah. So it's tied to fearlessness.
About you being sent out millions of light years away.
Yeah.
To a different planet.
I mean, I agree, but I guess it goes to my point of like, what I call boring atheist types that would think that Asimov's on their side, and I'm like, he literally is praising. Like I said, he's critiquing. We get the bumpkin, pure bumpkin, written as like just a stereotypical Southerner, like hillbilly lady in the shoe store. Like, oh, that's the first medievalist we see, to ending on the yeast guy, who's actually an intellectual.
But we kind of need all of them, because she's right to actually be.
They are just took in her gerbs as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a nothing issue, even if she words it in her, country talk and doesn't have the intellect.
If anything, I feel like the medievalists have a good balance of different.
Yeah, they're actually more of a holistic humanity and different viewpoints. All right. But I'm just saying, like, that's funny. It doesn't match with, like, the typical.
So Baley says, so you're not even curious about who killed this guy?
Mm-hmm.
And Daneel's like, what do you mean by curiosity? A nameless extension of knowledge, however, which is what I think you really mean by the term of curiosity, is merely inefficiency. I am designed to avoid inefficiency. So Bailey had been waiting for that one sentence to trigger what he needed, and that was the sentence. It could not all have burst full grown into his mind. Things do not work so. Somewhere deep inside his unconscious he had built a case, built it carefully and in detail, but had been brought up short by a single inconsistency. One inconsistency that could be neither jumped over, burrowed under, nor shunted aside. But the sentence had come, the inconsistency had vanished, the case was his. So he turns to Daneel, because Daneel's like, well, I guess we're done. But the thing is that he's little-minded, so he says, but today is not yet over. Bailey looked at his watch. It was 22:30. There's an hour and a half until midnight. So yeah, I did highlight where... So this is where he looks at his own watch. He doesn't ask Daneel to give him the time. And he specifically is like, I still have... Like, it is not midnight. So
yeah. In
literal terms, the day is not over. Our Daneel said, what you say is correct. Today is not over. I had not thought of that, partner Elijah. So right there, we click back. Daneel had already started just calling him Elijah because he was going to exit the case. But now he's back to partner Elijah, so the case is back on. And I start highlighting because it was like 22:45. Yeah. And like you start getting closer.
Yeah, he does a great job of building suspense there.
Yeah.
With like getting closer to midnight. Which is such a good detective like trope thing.
Yeah. It really is. The tension is great at this point in the book. So he goes into the commissioner's office, and the commissioner is basically getting ready to like question him, like he had predicted, because a lot of stuff is pointing towards him being the murderer of R. Sammy.
Yeah.
And so the commissioner goes, Lige, why did Jesse come to see you this afternoon? You asked me that before, Commissioner. Same answer. Family matters. I've got information from Francis Clusar, Lige. And he claims that Jezebel Baley is a member of the medievalist society dedicated to overthrow the government by force. Are you sure he was the right person? Are you sure he has the right person? There are many Baileys. Yeah. There aren't many Jezebel Baileys. He used her name, did he? He said Jezebel. I heard him, Lige. I'm not giving you a second-hand report. So, I mean, we're going to remember that she has not used her full name.
Yeah, since
like they have made such
fight.
A big deal about this for so long. So Bailey looks. By the time they're kind of done talking, Bailey looks at his watch again. It's 2300. He said, I know who's framing me, and I know how Dr. Sarton was killed and by whom, and I have 1 hour to tell you about it. Catch the man and end the investigation.
Yeah, and that's how we get up to chapter 18, end of an investigation, the final chapter.
So, I don't remember, I believe he had asked Daneel before he even came to talk to the commissioner to get the video footage of the crime scene.
Yeah. Well, his little cube.
Yeah. So it takes like less than 10 minutes. So while confronting the commissioner, he has this cube ready. So he said, he did know Jesse was a member. Does he know every member in the organization, do you suppose? I don't know. He knew about Jessie anyway. Maybe she was important because she was the wife of a policeman. Maybe he remembered her for that reason. You say he came right out and said that Jezebel Baley was a member. Just like that? Jezebel Baley? Enderby nodded. I keep telling you I heard him.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing, Commissioner. Jessie hasn't used her full first name since before Bentley was born. Not once. I know that for certain. She joined the medievalist after she dropped her full name. I know that for sure, too. How would Clusar come to know her as Jezebel, then?
He does a pretty good save here. He's like, I might have just filled it in automatically and gave her full name. In fact, I'm sure of it. He said Jessie.
Until now, you were quite sure he said Jezebel. I asked several times.
Yeah. You're off your head, man.
Am I? Where were you after lunch today? You were out of your office for 2 hours at least.
Are you questioning me?
You got me into trouble, didn't you? It would put a spoke in
the Sarton investigation.
In the Sarton investigation, wouldn't it? And all that aside, our Sammy knew too much. You see, Commissioner, You murdered Dr. Sarton of Spacetown.
Mm-hmm.
He counted on my well-known loyalty, you see. Secondly, he knew Jesse was a member of an underground organization and expected to be able to maneuver me out of the investigation or blackmail me into silence if I got too close to the truth. And he wasn't really worried about that. At the very beginning, he did his best to arouse my distrust of you, Daneel, and make certain that the two of us worked at cross purposes. How did Jesse find out Daneel was a robot? It puzzled me at the time. Of course, he knew now that she found out through her medievalist organization, but that just shoves the problem one step backward. How did they know? You, Commissioner, dismissed it with the theory that Daneel was recognized as a robot during the incident at the shoe counter. Yesterday, I asked Dr. Garrigill, the roboticist, to come in from Washington. Later, I decided I needed him for several reasons, but at the time I first called him, my only purpose was to see if he would recognize Daneel for what he was, with no prompting on my part. Now that was Dr. Garrigill, Earth's greatest expert on robots. Do you mean to say if you medievalist rioters could do better than he under conditions of confusion and tension, and be so certain about it that they would throw their entire organization into activity based on the feeling that Daneel was a robot? It was meant to confuse the issue, to turn suspicion away from individuals and toward the population as a whole.
Yeah.
I once thought it was Daneel myself, but that's out. The only other Earthman who knew about it was you, Commissioner.
Yup. Looking back, that was the biggest clue.
That I believe I said that in the last talk too.
I know. I don't remember how I reacted to that.
You just were very...
I remember changing the conversation.
I was like, how would this rumor have even started?
Yeah.
Nobody talks to Spacetown, and they're the only two that know what's going on. I was ready on to you, Commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting now that I look back on it, Commissioner, to see how your spirits rose and fell accordingly as I seemed to be far from a solution or possibly close to it. You were nervous to begin with. When I wanted to visit Spacetown yesterday morning, I wouldn't tell you the reason you were practically in a state of collapse.
Yeah.
Then when he made the mistake of calling
Daneel
the
out
murderer,
a bunch of times.
You enjoyed my mistake, said Baley. So then he said, when he called in Dr. Garrigill, it was quite safe to assume that it was in connection with information about robots. This frightened the Commissioner because a robot had an intimate connection with his greater crime. Isn't that so, Commissioner?
Yeah,
how was the murder committed? Demanded Baley with a suppressed fury. Sci-fi, damn it, sci-fi. I use your own term, Daneel. You're so full of benefits of a sci-fi culture, yet you don't see where an Earthman might have used it for at least a temporary advantage. Let me sketch it in for you. The Commissioner put a blaster into R. Sammy's hand, told him where to go and when. He himself entered Spacetown through the personal and was relieved of his own blaster. He received the other from R. Sammy's hands, killed Dr. Sarton, returned the blaster to R. Sammy, who took it back across the field to New York City, and today he destroyed R. Sammy, whose knowledge had become dangerous. It occurred to me then that your nearsightedness and your glasses were the key. Commissioner, when did you break your glasses? I was asking this question since the beginning.
Since page 2. Yeah.
Since the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
The Commissioner said, "What do you mean?" Baley said, "When I first saw you about this case, you told me you had broken your glasses in Spacetown. I assumed that you broke them in your agitation on hearing the news of the murder, but you never said so. And I had no reason for making that assumption."
Yeah. Yeah, he's saying that really you would have dropped it beforehand.
Yep. So, this is basically Baley putting the entire case together.
Yep, he lays it out and it certainly makes a whole lot of sense. And you realize, yeah.
Baley cast a side glance at the Commissioner. Enderby had closed his eyes. He looked sick. Baley felt sick too, but he had to look. Slowly, he circled the tridimensional image by means of the transmitter controls, rotating it, bringing the ground about the corpse to view in successive quadrants. His fingernails slipped and the image floor tilted suddenly and expanded till floor and corpse alike were a hazy mess. Beyond the resolving power of the transmitter, he brought the expansion down, let the corpse slide away. So this is him zooming in to find
like this video-like device.
Yeah, which I think it's hilarious that somehow Asimov predicted that we would be using our fingers to like zoom things in.
He has a great understanding of that, even though with the robot controls in Foundation 5.
The commissioner can't commit deliberate murder. True, deliberate. But any man can kill by accident. The commissioner didn't enter Spacetown to kill Dr. Sarton. He came in to kill you, Daneel. Is there anything in your cerebral analysis that says he is incapable of wrecking a machine? That's not murder, merely sabotage.
Yeah.
So he's piecing it all together. He feared that purpose might be achieved, that Earthmen would eventually be weaned away from Earth, so he decided to destroy you, Daneel.
Yeah.
Because remember, he was working, which I was already suspicious of, that he was supposedly working with Sarton to, like, help integrate these robots into the, like, our society, even though he, like, supposedly hates robots and hates Spacetown.
Yeah, and by weaned away from Earth, you think he means that he understood the plot to get them to go colonize?
They trusted him enough, and
He's
I think
against
Dr.
space
Sarton
colonization.
trusted him enough that he was trying to tell him, like, we planned to have y'all go into space.
That's what I think too, but I didn't know if away from Earth in the sense of just staying in the caves, because he could be with robot help, but doesn't really make sense.
I mean, Sarton was probably also telling him, and again, there's this whole, like, we don't do that because we're not spacers culture.
Yeah. I think I agree. It's more, the more obvious interpretation is to prevent them from going into space.
So, no, said Baley, you didn't kill Daneel. He's here, and in all the time that he's been in the city, you haven't been able to look him in the face or address him by name. Look at him now, Commissioner. You were at the dome when you dropped your glasses. You must have been nervous, and I've seen when you're nervous. You take them off, you wipe them. You did that then, but your hands were shaking and you dropped them. Again, I don't understand why he would have taken off his glasses if he's holding a whatever. Like,
he's got his gun.
He has the gun,
blaster.
like...
Or is he doing all this with his 3 hands?
You blasted him, scrambled up the remains of your glasses, and ran. They found the body, not you, and when they came to find you, you discovered that it was not Daneel, but the early rising Dr. Sarton that you had killed. Dr. Sarton had designed Daneel in his own image, to his great misfortune, and without your glasses in the moment of tension, you could not tell them apart. And if you want the tangible proof, there it is. The image of Sarton's dome quivered, and Baley put the transmitter carefully upon the desk, his hand tightly upon it.
Yeah, and that's where we get the quote I read before about the slivers of glass and the
glitter
door.
and the grooves of the door. What was it, Daneel? 2 small slivers of glass, said the robot coolly. It meant nothing to us. It will now. They're portions of concave lenses. Measure their optical properties and compare them with those of the glasses Enderby is wearing now. Don't smash them, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Because he was gonna... Yeah, I could picture him just taking them off.
Just open his window and jump the F out.
Except he ordered like 2...
Oh, that would have been poetic.
He ordered like 2 backup pairs, so shit would have been hilarious if he did smash them.
Yeah,
like...
and then he has to smash the other 2.
So I'm quite convinced. I see now that I was thrown completely off the scent by the Commissioner's cerebral analysis. I congratulate you, partner Elijah.
Yeah.
Bailey's watch said 2400.
Yep.
A new day was beginning. So...
Right on time.
So what are we going to do with him now that we've figured this all out?
Yeah, they're going to execute him.
So...
Send him to the spacers. But no, the spacers are far more clever, and like you said, a lot of this is foreshadowing for how the Foundation will operate. How, First Foundation.
Basically, Baley tells him, we're going to use you for something, and it's what the spacers are after, and God help me, it's what I'm after now, too. Since a small conversation I had with Dr. Fastolf, it's what they... Fastolf.
You're clearly undiagnosed, but I love you, and it's okay. Fastolf.
I'm undiagnosed what?
Well, don't get me started. But that seems like dyslexia. You put in the L, you say festival. You got like extra L's.
It's what they want more than anything. They risk death continually by coming to Earth and staying here for that purpose. So he's realizing if we can use him.
And I love that line that they risk death but coming here. There's riots over here. Everybody hates the spacers. They literally can, he means just by viruses, just by sneezing on them, we can kill the spacers.
Yeah. If Dr. Sarton's murder would make it possible for you to swing medievalism into line for the resumption of galactic colonization, we'll probably consider it a worthwhile sacrifice. Do you understand now?
Yeah.
Daneel said, Elijah is quite correct. Help us, Commissioner, and we will forget the past. I am speaking of Dr. Fastolf and our people generally in this. Of course, if you should agree to help and later betray us, we would always have the fact of your guilt to hold over your head. I hope you understand that too. It pains me to have to mention that.
Mm-hmm.
You won't prosecute. I won't be prosecuted, asked the Commissioner. Not if you help us. Tears filled his eyes. I'll do it. It was an accident. Explain that. An accident. I did what I thought right.
Yeah. Because he has to know, like you said, he's friends with Fastolf, and he knows that he's working on this humanoid. I mean, but yeah, you think he knew that he was working on him? That he had a humanoid?
Yes, that he for sure knew because
it's just his glasses. That's why he shot the wrong guy.
He probably hadn't met the robot in person.
I don't think he could tell if his glasses were working.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. I mean, he couldn't. Like you said, he must not have seen it actually finished.
That or...
That it has the actual skin and face and really looks like Fastolf.
Even if he had met him, I don't think he thought that the doctor would answer the door. Like, why not have your robot do that?
Yeah, that's funny. That's poetic, too. It's beneath him, but in this better sci-fi culture, he doesn't see Daneel as a slave.
Yeah.
As a servant man. That's funny. I like that angle, too. Yeah.
So, Baley, with all this wrapped up, he goes, all right, then I'll go home. I want to see Jesse and Bentley and take up a natural existence again, and I want to sleep. Daneel, will you stay on Earth after the spacers go? Daneel said, I have not been informed. Why do you ask? Baley bit his lip and said, I don't think I would ever say anything like this to anyone like you, Daneel, but I trust you. I even admire you. I'm too old ever to leave Earth myself, but when schools for immigrants are finally established, there's Bentley. If someday, perhaps, Bentley and you together... Perhaps Daneel's face was emotionless.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Did I miss... There's actually a part where...
No, there's next.
Oh, yeah, I did. So, Daneel, because they're going to leave hand in hand. Oh, yeah, that's highlighted too. Yeah. Basically, Daneel hesitated, then almost as though he were surprised at his own words, he said...
hold on. I got you.
All right, you go.
Because
what else did I miss?
Because the line before, that's what you need to do that.
Oh, okay.
Because the robot turned to Julius Enderby, the commissioner, who was watching him with a flaccid face and with certain vitality, was only now beginning to return. So he just looks at the commissioner, who's the bad guy. The robot said, the robot said, by the way, isn't that funny? The robot said, I have been trying, friend Julius, to understand some remarks Elijah made to me earlier. I love that he calls Julius friend. Perhaps I am beginning to, for it suddenly seems to me that the destruction of what should not be, that is, the destruction of what you people call evil, is less just and desirable than the conversion of this evil into what you call good. So maybe getting rid of evil isn't ideal.
Yeah, converting
it, using that as an energy source to convert it into good, maybe that's better.
Which is also beautiful because we literally have a line when Baley was talking to the other cop about like immigration, and the cop was like, we have unlimited resources, and there's literally a line that I highlighted that said energy is literally irreplaceable, or you can't just keep, it's the only thing that's like a limited quantity. Like they're gonna either run out of nuclear, they're gonna run out of coal,
something
like it is limited and finite. So to be able to say like maybe it's better to not destroy evil but convert it, it's almost like
and so the title, the end, he says this is Baley now. He hesitated then, almost as though he were surprised at his own words. He said, go and sin no more.
Is it Baley?
No, yeah, sorry. No, of course. Yeah, sorry. I was reading the next line. Yeah, Daneel is saying, so the robot says, go and sin no more. Because he's referencing the line, because he says, I was thinking about something Baley told me earlier. Yeah, the story from the let he without sin cast the first stones. So the robot just quoted the Bible, and Baley, suddenly smiling, took Daneel's elbow, and they walked out the door arm in arm.
They're so cute.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah, that is how it ends. But we're trying to uplift the robot to get him to think out of the narrow, laws. But the laws were put in place to protect us. And I love how at every layer that's true. Like, even if, like, right now, robots are being created, you could be pessimistic and say just to cut costs and even, like I said, an anti-humanist urge from a lot of these tech bros, a lot of these people that don't think humanity's special. Even if that's true, it's going to help us in a lot of ways in the future. I mean, nuclear energy being used for either bombs or nuclear devices and all kinds of tech ends up being used in war and then also to advance civilization. So these robots are just the latest thing on that, continuum there. But you got them teaching each other. Like, the whole spacers are, again, that they're going to have the commissioner backhack and, like, infiltrate and ruin the medievalists.
Yeah, like, he's going to start turning the medievalists. Like, he's clearly high up, so he's going to start guiding them towards thinking that immigration is the best thing for Earth and for the species. I admit this is probably why, because we have the myths in Foundation where the spacers were like the first wave and then the next wave had no robots. So I do think that because the medievalists still don't like robots, we might get them at least embracing the idea of colonizing the stars, but
and they must
not
have
necessarily wanting the robots.
Yeah. And they must have set up the Empire eventually.
Yeah, they have to.
So it's pretty crazy.
Which is also funny because they're like the medievalists and the Empire has a very like...
And it ends up remaking Caves of Steel across the entire planet. Like, how nuts is that? Trantor was just...
one giant cave of steel.
But that's what's so great about this book and Asimov's understanding of the history. This is what it looks like, folks, when you have cross-disciplinary interests. Religion, history, science, and put it into sci-fi writing skill to actually have the skill to write like this. It's like, man, that's cool, poetic. Like,
You're such a brain.
Like I say, who's right here? Were they supposed to go into space? Empire falls. How funny that, like, when we meet Second Foundation on Trantor, they're living like how the medievalists wanted to.
Yeah.
They're living in their little... it's like villagers. They're farming again. Farming was what once Coruscant, to picture just a giant ecumenopolis.
Return to the soil.
Yeah, they return to the soil for real on Trantor. And end up being, it's so primitive and backwards and just grog.
I wonder if that's secretly why it's so easy for them to go back to. Like, I wonder if their medievalist roots...
Yeah, it's just in their culture that deep. It is 20,000 years from here about. Yeah, but just so many layers of all these things, and like I said, written well, calling back to different things. It's crazy you read this after our most disappointing Foundation book, Foundation 5.
Well, it was definitely redeeming.
Yeah, but I think
refreshing.
It's again my favorite of his books that I've ever read. How do you feel about the next ones in the series?
I'm like super excited.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'll still be Baley and Daneel, or if it's going to be Bentley and Daneel. But
what do you think he meant by... Only last question before we'll wrap it up here soon. I want to see Jesse and Bentley and take up a natural existence again.
He just wants to go back to living his life.
You think he means normal existence in the sense of a cave-dwelling New Yorker?
No. I mean...
You mean he means like a medievalist? Like live in the woods?
No. Or yeah, I guess the cave... He just wants to literally go back to whatever he was doing 2 days ago.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean by not really natural. He means normal.
Yeah.
That's what you think he means?
I don't know how normal it'll ever be, but like...
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting at.
Just having his job and like...
Yeah. Obviously, I know... I read the next book for sure. I don't remember if I read the third one. I think so. I just want to see what you thought about that.
I just don't... I don't know. I don't think he'll ever truly go back to normal.
That is what I super believe Asimov believes here. If you can debate, like, where does he really stand? How many things are his beliefs? Like, that you can't go backwards. I super agree with that. And I think that's Asimov saying, that is his thoughts.
But at least going back...
Man, if we could just...
Getting a good night's sleep. He wants
well, no. I meant before when he was saying... when he's talking with the yeast man, you could imagine romantics in a sense, like in the same sense as the medievalists. Like if we could just get rid of technology and computers, we really could live like medieval peasants, more tied to the earth, not on phones, not with all this weird depression and this and that and drugs and blah blah blah. But I just don't think that's possible. I don't know. Even if you were to colonize different worlds in the future, like even on Trantor when they became medievalist in a funny way, they're still controlled. It's never the same. Like history just goes forward. You can't go back in time, even to cosplay as a earlier point in your own history. Even if you think you set up the same conditions, it won't be because you have history. Because now you remember, like, well, how did we get here though?
Well, in a funny way, Trantor didn't really, like, they wiped so many things.
But even if you tried that here, like, we have the evolutionary record, like, it seems like we evolved on Earth.
Yeah.
Whereas, even if you set up a planet, like, why couldn't you just find a planet like Earth and decide to live like a 10th century, European life?
I mean, we see, I guess in Foundation it's kind of funny because you do see where they explore some other planets.
Mm-hmm.
And you do see how different civilizations have, like, some of them were.
Yeah, but I feel like that's what we saw when they traveled around all these planets. Like, but it doesn't work because it's not true. You somebody in your civilization is gonna find that, like, you guys were spacefaring. That's how you got here. You didn't evolve on this world. Like, it was funny that they forgot that. The Pellerat researcher had to prove the point to Trevize. Like, yeah, I think Trevize agreed too. But the point is, most people didn't even think about, like, humans must have all came from one planet at some point.
Yeah, a lot of people don't.
Yeah, to your point of maybe you could just set up a society that never thought about that.
I think it'd be.
I know, right? You're probably right there. But eventually, somebody would. I guess that's if you had to mediate the point, it could never last for long.
How could I word this? Someone would not. Some of them would.
Yeah.
And they do paint that in Foundation where, like, some of the planetary systems after, like, the world itself was colonized and they started colonizing worlds near them, they really just kept their history from their planet colonization and then, like,
and they romanticized that beginning.
It just disappeared, became folklore, like.
But I guess that's the point too. All right, I guess I were to add on, you can never lock down, like, history. Like, if only let's just stay here, because you're saying they could, but they can't forever.
Yeah,
you could never, of course, keep it locked in forever, and so that's what's naive about the medievalists.
You get a Pellerat that's like, where did we come from?
Just something, even other aliens, like whether literal aliens or other civilizations. So I'm glad you liked it. Good book review.
Oh boy.
I mean, good book recommendation. No, we're cutting it. We're good.
All right, guys.
Baby is moving on the thing, but we're good. We're gonna end it here, and we'll see what we're reading next time.
Yeah. We'll probably be starting book 2.
Yeah. See you next time.